Good afternoon and welcome to today's proceedings of the Senate on this 15th day of May 2018. This afternoon, there are a number of statements which would be requested and others will be issued before this House. The Senator for Turkana County, Senator Imana Malakai Ekal, will seek a statement from the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation regarding Kainuk Nadapal Road, Lodwa Lokitang Road, and Lodwa Lokiriama Road in Turkana County. Again, the Senator for Turkana County, Honorable Senator Malaka Ekal, will also seek a statement from the chairperson of the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the killing of 4 people, 1 man and 3 school children in Emeyan near Kapedo, Turkana County on Friday, 4th May 2018 by bandits suspected to be from a neighboring county. Also, the Senator for Garissa County, Honorable Senator Mohammed Yusuf Haji, will seek a statement from the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Education regarding the status of scholarships awarded to the government of Kenya. Nominated Senator Beatrice Komboka will seek a statement from the chairperson, Standing Committee on Health, regarding the death of a 30-year-old expectant woman, Ms. Subira Hamisi, who was in labor at the gate of Gombato Dispensary in Kwale County. And then nominated Senator Beatrice Komboka will also seek a statement from the chairperson, Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the state of Mihango Estate in Nairobi County. The same senator will seek another statement from the chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation regarding the state of Outer Ring Road in Nairobi City County. There are a number of statements also which are due for issue, that is pursuant to Standing Order 46, paragraph 2b, where the chairperson, Standing Committee on National Cohesion, Equal Opportunity and Regional Integration, will issue a statement on the alleged abuse of human rights of persons with disabilities. That particular statement had been sought by nominated Senator Gertrude Musuruve. Also, before this House this afternoon, the chairperson, Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations, will issue a statement on delay in handing over the Lake Basin Mall in Kisumu City to the Lake Basin Development Authority. That particular statement had been sought by the Senator for Kisumu County, Senator Fred Outa. The chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation, will issue a statement on the status of physical development plan for South Sea Estate in Nairobi City County. That particular statement had been sought by Senator Rose Nyamunga. There are other statements which will be issued before this House this afternoon, but as well there are also some other businesses which will be conducted, and among those will be the debate on the County Wards Development Equalization Fund Bill, Senate Bill number 5 of 2018. The debate on this particular bill had begun before it was interrupted on Thursday, 10th May 2018. The County Government Amendment Bill number 2, that's Senate Bill number 7 of 2017, the debate on it had also begun, and that particular debate is for the second reading, and hopefully if the senators will be able to dispense of the business which appears or at order number 8, that is the County Wards Development Equalization Fund Bill, then they will probably be debating the County Government Amendment Bill. The Office of the County Attorney Bill also appears on the order of business this afternoon. This particular bill is set for debate for the second reading, as well as the County Government Retirement Scheme Bill and the Public Participation Bill, Senate Bill number 4 of 2018, which has been authored by the Honorable Senator for Busia County. Most work on that particular bill should be debated for the second reading. The Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Kenneth Lusaka, taking a bow, ready to superintend business this House has to undertake this afternoon.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberations in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, Article 215 of the Constitution of Kenya establishes Commission on Revenue Allocation, CRA. The principal function of the CRA is to make recommendations concerning the basis for the equitable sharing of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments and among county governments. Additionally, the Commission determines, publishes, and regularly reviews the policy in which it sets out the criteria by which marginalized areas are identified. Honorable Senators, by a letter received in the Office of the Clerk of the Senate, reference number CRA/CSO/P&S 2, volume 223, dated 15th March 2018, the CRA invites the Senate to a consultative meeting to deliberate on the draft second generation policy identifying marginalized areas in Kenya. The meeting is scheduled to be held on Thursday, 17th May 2018, at the Senate chamber from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Honorable Senators may wish to note that this meeting was scheduled to be held at an earlier date but was postponed to enable the Commission hold discussions with the Senate standing committees on finance and budget first. All Honorable Senators are encouraged to attend and participate in the deliberations. Honorable Senators, kindly also note that immediately after the meeting with CRA, we shall meet with the Liaison Health on medical scheme issues. I thank you. I have the following communication to make too. As Honorable Senators will recall, at the sitting of Thursday, 10th May 2018, during the order on statements, Senator Moses Kajwang rose on a point of order stating that he had observed that since Senate resumed its sittings from the recess on 8th May 2018, whenever the order on statements was read, the Speaker had been calling out the names of the chairpersons responsible for issuing the statements listed on the order paper, but that the chairpersons had not responded, and neither the chairpersons nor their members had given any indication on when the statements would be issued. Senator Kajwang urged the Speaker to take action on chairpersons and to give strict notice on them in order to ensure that they issued all scheduled statements. Senator Enoch Wambua also rose on a point of order in support of the matters raised by Senator Kajwang. Senator Wambua stated that he too had observed the trend where on each day on the order paper, a long list of statements that were due for issue were set out, but at the end of the day, only 2 or 3 chairpersons were available to issue the statements. The senator urged the speaker to call the chairpersons to order. Senator Ledama Olekina, while speaking on this matter, suggested that there was need to enhance the capacity of chairpersons to address such statements that were before the respective committees. Honorable senators, having noted the concerns of the honorable senators and the issues that they had raised, I undertook to issue a communication on the way forward on this matter. Honorable senators, as you are aware, statements have featured in the standing orders of the Senate since the commencement of the 11th Parliament. Statements are presently provided for under Standing Order 46 of the Standing Orders of the Senate. Standing Order 46.2 provides for categories of statements. 4 categories. A statement made by a senator on the county issues or an issue of global or general topical concern. B, a statement requested by a senator from a committee of persons relating to matters under the mandate of the committee, for which the speaker may appoint a day for the statement to be made, or direct that the statement be issued on the same day. A statement issued by the Senate majority leader, or in his absence, a member of the Senate Business Committee designated by the Senate majority leader for that purpose, informing the Senate of the business coming before the Senate in the following week. A statement issued by the Senate majority leader, the Senate minority leader, or a committee chairperson, as the case may be, or their designees relating to their responsibilities in the Senate or the activities of the committee. Most statements in the Senate fall under statements that are requested under Standing Order 46.2b of the Standing Orders of the Senate. Indeed, in the first session of the Senate, 27 statements were requested under Standing Order 46.2b. In the second session, 86 statements have so far been requested under this standing order. This makes a total of 113 statements in the 12th Parliament so far. Of the 27 statements requested in the first session, 7 responses were issued and concluded. 3 statements were issued, but further information or clarifications were sought from the chairpersons. By the end of the first session, a total of 17 statements had not been concluded and therefore lapsed. In the second session, a total of 86 statements had by Thursday, 10th May 2018, been requested. Of this order. Go. Okay. Order member may, of these 20 statements have been issued so far. All other remain in abeyance and have continued to be rolled over in successive order papers to the chagrin of the senators who requested for the statements. From these statistics, honorable senators, and from the issues raised by Senators Kajwang in his point of order and other senators who spoke on the same matter, it is evident that there is need to reconsider the manner in which statements are processed in the Senate. As honorable senators are aware, the order on statements traces its roots to the order in the question time that featured in the standing orders of the National Assembly prior to the 11th Parliament, before the shift to a presidential system of government. At that time, ministers and assistant ministers formed part of the membership of Parliament and were therefore personally present and available to respond to questions addressed to their respective dockets in each sitting. This changed in the 11th Parliament following the shift to a presidential system of government. Cabinet secretaries are now not members of Parliament and are therefore not present in the Senate to respond to issues raised to their ministries, departments, and agencies. Thus, taking into account the presidential system of government, the standing orders of the Senate of the 11th Parliament did away with question time and instead provided understanding order 46.2b for requests for statements, which statements would be provided by the chairperson of committees. In this design, chairpersons and their committees were expected to seek information from the respective cabinet secretaries as well as all other relevant persons and institutions, and to eventually issue a comprehensive statement of the committees that would take into account the information received from the various entities, including the cabinet secretary. This was not to be. The practice that has prevailed since the 11th Parliament is one where the committee seeks the written response of the cabinet secretary, which is then read to the Senate verbatim. Committee chairs have, by this state of events, been reduced to agents or mouthpieces of the cabinet secretaries. This, honorable senators, has often resulted in awkward situations, especially where the senator who requested the statement or other senators seek clarification on the statement issued or further information from the chairperson. This information is not usually readily available, and the chairperson and the committee will then proceed to request for further time to seek the additional information from the cabinet secretary. As a result, the order paper now features statements which are to be issued by chairpersons, as well as a lengthy schedule of statements on which further information is to be provided by the chairpersons. As an example, on the order paper of Thursday, 10th May 2018, we had 16 such requests for further information. In some situations, we have ended up in the unfortunate situation where further information has been sought on the further information provided. Honorable senators, it's important to observe that chairpersons have themselves expressed their frustrations directly to me or in the Senate on this state of affairs. Chairpersons have specifically cited various frustrations, including their inability to sometimes obtain statements for issuance from the executive at all, and despite their best efforts on the statements requested. The fact that they oftentimes have to personally shuttle from office to office in the executive in order to issue that they secure a statement, to ensure that they secure a statement for issuance at the required time, which takes away valuable time within which they would otherwise be engaged in other parliamentary business. The fact that they often receive the statements to be issued outside of the timeline within which they have required to issue the statement in the Senate, thus calling to question the commitments that they make in the Senate. The fact that the information that they receive from the cabinet secretary is often sometimes inadequate and falls short of comprehensively addressing the issues raised in the request for statements, and the time taken by the committee in processing statements vis-a-vis the time dedicated by committees to processing of other business before the committees, such as bills and petitions. Indeed, on that very day, Thursday, 10th May 2018, the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources expressed such frustrations and decried his inability to obtain such statements from the executive. The chairperson sought the intervention of the Speaker to summon the cabinet secretaries responsible for lands and environment to the committee in order to ensure that the committee obtained the required statements, which were long overdue. Senator Haniri correctly pointed out that the powers vested in the committees of the Senate under Article 125 of the Constitution was such that the intervention of the Speaker was not required for a committee to summon a cabinet secretary to a meeting of a committee. Nevertheless, the request by the chairperson and similar requests by other chairpersons point to the challenges that the chairpersons of committees continue to face in obtaining statements from the executive. There is therefore frustration both on the part of the senators who request the statements and on the part of the chairpersons who are required to respond to these statements. The Speaker has not been spared of these frustrations, either when the day after the day statements continue to be deferred for lack of responses or lack of adequate responses. Beyond these frustrations, honorable senators, there lies a consequential difficulty. The standing orders under Standing Order 46.2b contemplate that it's therefore it's the chairperson of the committee from whom statements are requested and who are to issue the statements requested. Yet, the matters raised in the requests for statements are matters that are within the domain of the executive. The information that chairperson requires in order to issue the statement is information that is within the possession of the executive. If the chairpersons are to obtain the information, it will require that it is provided fully and truthfully and within the stipulated time. Once presented, the chairperson may present it to the Senate in the manner in which it has been received, in which case the chairperson and the committee cannot vouch for the information received. The chairperson may also choose to process the information received from the executive through the committee before it's issued to the Senate for interrogation. This way, the chairpersons and the committee will take full ownership and responsibility for the statement that is subsequently issued. However, this would mean that each and every statement the respective committee would conduct a full-blown inquiry to enable the committee to establish the issues relating to the statement requested. This would therefore mean that the responses would be provided after lengthy periods of time. Further, the committee that have numerous statements on their in tray would spend most of their legislative time on inquiries on the statements that are before them. Honorable Senators, these concerns are not new. They have been the subject of deliberation not just in the Senate, but also in the Senate of the 11th Parliament. Members have over time been put in place in an attempt to better manage the statements. It is, however, evident that we have now come to a place where we require to conclusively determine the way forward so as to ensure the smooth processing of business of the Senate. At the inaugural leadership retreat of the Senate of the 12th Parliament, this matter was considered at length, and the leadership considered and proposed the way forward. In order to take the matter forward and following deliberations by the Senate Business Committee, I have directed that this matter be comprehensively addressed at a meeting of the Liaison Committee, which will be held on Thursday, 17th May 2018 at noon. The Liaison Committee, as honorable senators are aware, brings together the chairpersons of all Senate committees. Thereafter, a meeting of all senators shall be held at which senators shall have the opportunity to receive and consider the proposals emanating from the leadership and the Liaison Committee. Accordingly, I hereby inform all honorable senators that until the meetings are held and until I have given further direction on this matter thereafter, the approval for requests for statements and for the issuance of statements under Standing Order 46.2b of the Standing Orders of the Senate shall be deferred. It is important that I clarify that this does not affect statements provided for under Standing Order number 46A, C, and D. As such, in the interim, senators may consider taking advantage of the provisions of Standing Order 46.2a of the Standing Orders of the Senate, which allow senators to make a statement on county issues or on an issue of general topical concern to raise any issues that may arise within their respective counties or that are of general topical concerns. I thank you. What's your point of order, Leader of Majority?
Mr. Speaker, allow me to congratulate you for making very comprehensive statement insofar as this issue of statement time is concerned. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform the House that also the minority leader and the majority leader have been invited by the Liaison Committee to attend the same meeting. And I think, Mr. Speaker, once we get directions on this matter, it will make the business of the Senate become even more, Mr. Speaker, organized. Because as we speak, that Liaison Committee meeting must actually consider, Mr. Speaker, as you said, to what extent a chairman can defend a statement that just has been signed vis-a-vis a statement that has been interrogated by the committee and tabled to this House as a report. And I would like to defend the chairman because I saw stories elsewhere, and I know it's not evidence in this House, misquoting you to some extent, that Mr. Speaker criticizes the chairman in the House that they have not done enough. It is not, I doubt if it is really their fault. It is us reorienting the parliamentary processes and systems to respond to presidential system of government. If you see, and Senator Wetangula used to tell us this most of the time, is the question of when you say committee system, what does committee system really mean? To what extent does a committee function on behalf of the House? And if you look at all the debates, all the inquiries that are done in the United States of America, because that's where we borrowed the presidential system, all the reports about Facebook inquiry, all the inquiries related to security in US, nobody talks about how the question was answered on the floor of the Senate in America. It's about how the Senate committee was inquiring a particular issue and what was their report to the House. And I think, Mr. Speaker, the ultimate objective of this process should be to return a proper presidential system of government with a proper working committee systems. And Mr. Speaker, from where I stand, and speaking on behalf of my colleague in the minority, we will be there and will be ready to shift them, to move this House. And perhaps it will be your greatest contribution as the second Speaker of the Senate, that in your time, there was established a proper working committee system which is responding to the Constitution, which recognizes presidential system of government. So, Speaker, I thank you.
Senator Kajwang.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to thank you for your ruling. I'd initiated the matter. Mr. Speaker, I must also note that I'm also a chair, a committee chair. And so when I raise those frustrations, I am part of that big mess that we are trying to address. Mr. Speaker, you have enumerated the challenges that chairs face, and I don't want to belabor or debate before the liaison committee sits. But Mr. Speaker, I would also wish to urge the members of the liaison committee, when they are considering this matter, we must ask ourselves how it is not just about the efficient use of the time of the Senate, but it is also about effective representation. Because a senator has got a duty to represent the interest of the people from the counties where they hail from. So let it not just be an issue of efficiency, how we manage time in this House, let it also tackle the issue of effectiveness. But more fundamentally, Mr. Speaker, I wish that the liaison committee, in leadership of committees and composition of committees, Mr. Speaker, we have had a habit in this House where we are saying that certain committees shall be chaired by the opposition. And sometimes I ask myself, when it comes to audit of county accounts, what is opposition or government about it? Mr. Speaker, in the first Senate, we had a gentleman's arrangement where leadership of the other standing committees would, we negotiated where one coalition would chair and another coalition would deputize. Could liaison committee also try to address this gluttony that we have seen in this current Senate, where the chairs and vice chairs are drawn from one political divide, and therefore it does not bring about
What's your point of order,
balance.
Leader of Majority?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Moses Kajwang was proceeding very well in a very humble and submissive manner. Mr. Speaker, is it in order to use the word glutton, Mr. Speaker, that a process of democracy that provides that the majority in any situation, Mr. Speaker, will have their way and the minority will have their say, can it be described, is that not, Mr. Speaker, an insult on our constitutional order? But even more importantly, is that parliamentary?
Senator Kajwang, proceed. I'll make a ruling on that.
Mr. Speaker, I will continue in a very submissive and humble manner, but remind us that when old bones are mentioned in a proverb, old women usually complain. Mr. Speaker, I wish that liaison committee will also address itself to this particular matter on the
What is your
leadership
point of order?
committees.
It's a proverb.
Mr. Speaker, you can see, Mr. Speaker, Senator Kajwang is drifting from one scene to the other, Mr. Speaker. By the time you will rescue him, Mr. Speaker, he will have committed unforgiven sin. Because, Mr. Speaker, what is it that Mr. Honorable Kajwang saw in an old lady and not in an old man, Mr. Speaker? And why are his examples revolving around age, Mr. Speaker, of elderly statesmen or stateswomen, and also particularly focused on women?
I think it's a proverb from Chinua Achebe's book, Chinua Achebe. So I think he was only quoting what Chinua Achebe wrote. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for protecting me. I know Senator Murkomen's birthday, it's a difference of 1 month from my birthday. I will get him a copy of that Chinua Achebe book. Mr. Speaker, I humbly submit that the liaison committee also considers that issue of leadership of committees. Thank you.
Senator Yusuf Haji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, on Thursday, I will not be available to make my suggestions, Mr. Speaker, because I'll be attending this meeting of bridging. So I would like to say this, Mr. Speaker. In the first place, I think Kajwang corrected himself. He said he's a member, he's the chairman of a committee. It was not fair to generalize, because as far as my committee is concerned, I have always been here, and if I'm not there, my deputy is here. Mr. Speaker, the delay in receiving statements, and I have mentioned this another time, whenever we encounter the cabinet secretaries, when they are available, and which is not always the case, they will always give the excuse that the statement came a day before it appeared in the order of the day, Mr. Speaker. We need to check why these statements are not going in time to these people. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, it is not possible for the committee to interrogate every statement that they receive, because most of the time we chase for these statements. You get it today, and already it is in the order paper. So it becomes very difficult to call a committee members to go through. I think that is another area which the committee, which is going to sit, should look into. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, is not fair to attack only the chairs. Even members of the House, they ask statements. It is on the order paper. The statement is ready, and they are not available. I can quote some of them 2-3 times they are not here. Also, that also should be dealt with, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir.
Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. What I wanted to say, Speaker, is it's the majority of the chairpersons come from the majority, which means government. I just hope that the persons who are in government are not attempting to sabotage this House. So that we must interrogate.
Senator Kangata, let's consult in low tones, please.
Because they come from the majority. Mr. Speaker, in South Africa, Malema is famous for questions. In the UK, the question time is the most important session on Wednesday. We watched recently in the House of Lords, one member resigned because of not answering a question. The only way we can put the government to task is ask questions. So while you contemplate it, we hope, Mr. Speaker, that we are not going to lose the opportunity to question government on the floor of the Senate where Kenyans are watching. We don't want to hide. So therefore, the balance must be created in such a way that governments must still answer questions through the majority and possibly follow a handshake formula. It is not a contradiction for the majority to cede some of the chairpersons to the minority. It's not a contradiction in the spirit of moving this country forward. Thank you.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the floor. Mr. Speaker, this is a house of record, it's a house of order. On Thursday, Mr. Speaker, when you issued orders, and you did this twice, you required that all chairmen and vice chairmen of committees attend the session today before you deliver your statement. Mr. Speaker, I want to request the chief whip or the majority confirms to this house whether or not all the chairman and vice chairman of committees are in attendance in compliance with orders that you gave from the chair. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the orders that you issued today about deferring requests of statements under Standing Order number 46 2B. To know whether, Mr. Speaker, that order applies retrogressively, and if it does not, Mr. Speaker, on that same Thursday, you issued an order about a statement that I requested, and you said it be listed in the order paper today. Mr. Speaker, that statement has been omitted from the order paper. I want direction from the chair. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, I'll give that directive. Senator Zani Agnes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's a situation that both the 11th Parliament and 12th Parliament found itself in a presidential system that has created problems because, as you have said, it would be the minister answering, and therefore they would know the intricacies of the issue. They'd be able to answer even ad hoc questions. I think it's been very clumsy and unfortunate when members, chairmen have to answer questions on behalf of ministers, sometimes even answering questions on behalf of ministers from the opposite side. So definitely we have a problem. But I want to say that in the 11th Parliament, we tried to solve this many times by having the minister come to the Committee of the Whole. Especially when we had so many questions in a particular ministry, it still gave the House a good opportunity for oversight. And to add on to what Senator Kilonzo has said, maybe we'd have those sessions also televised so that we ease the workload. Mr. Speaker, we also mentioned the other time the importance of committee chairs giving responsibilities, allocating responsibility to some of the members of their committees to give some of these specific answers. I think it becomes very, very important. I don't know which way the license committee's decision will be. We have to await to see which direction they will go. But I think it's very important to have a balance in all that. Because I know National Assembly have gone the other way. I think they have decided that statements are going to the committees. I think we lose a very important role there because the Senate stands for the interests of the counties, and there are certain issues that have to be discussed through statements that happen within the counties, and that gives us also the representative role. So I hope we don't go directly opposite and go into that direction, but we also have to find a way to balance the number of statements and the way they're given in this House, because definitely the way we are going, we seem to be getting lost along the way in terms of the strength, the effort, and the energy that is put into getting the questions in, and then the way they've given on the floor of the House, and also the questions that come even after that, Mr. Speaker. I think as the license committee meets, Mr. Speaker, let's ensure that we have a balance. Right now, the discussion whether we're going to remain presidential or whether we're going parliamentary is a bigger discourse, I think, within the country, but definitely we've lost a very, very important aspect of having the ministers in the House so that they can answer these questions, but we must find a way of also holding them accountable because this House, I think, can do that better than any other institution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mwaura Isaac.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is a very serious issue because a lot of business transacted on the floor of this House is done through statements. However, really, the chairman and by extension the vice chairman of committees cannot really be the representatives of the executive in this House. And I remember when we were in the National Assembly, when we tried to have a general purposes committee, there was a protest from the executive because they said it's like the speaker trying to usurp the role of chairing a cabinet meeting. It became very acrimonious. However, I found a lot of respite in the fact that statements were turned into questions And then these questions would be listed in the order paper. The leader of majority would actually give, notice of when a member was supposed to appear before a certain committee, where the minister or the PS would actually respond to that question. And I think this expedited, a lot of these issues. And I would want to imagine, as we explore the solution to this problem, that is something we may want to consider, so that we also are able to redeem a lot of plenary time to discuss congent issues, especially where I think we are not doing very well in terms of actual bills that we need to discuss on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, yes, indeed, there is always the benefit of us sitting, all of us together, to discuss a certain matter of national interest. But I think the issue here, and I'm sure the chairman may have been candid in this, is that expecting a fellow senator, really, who doesn't have even the instruments of proper research to be able to balance between county matters and all the committee work, I think it is asking for too much. That's the honest opinion. And even if we hammer the chairman and the deputies, it will not change the situation. Because if you rely on somebody who will give you half answers, who will try to dodge you because they don't want to be accountable, you will still end up misleading this House or delaying the proceedings or deliberations of this House. And so therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think the way to go is, because this august House has the powers to summon anyone, that the cabinet secretary and now their assistants who have just been given the roles, the CSS and the PSS, can then appear after being summoned to our committees, and if need be, such reports can also be tabled on the floor of the House. Thank you.
Senator Moses Wetangula.
Mr. Speaker, I allowed your ruling and want to urge that a better mechanism be designed to handle statements. If you look at today's order paper, we have 38 statements. 38. Even if, Mr. Speaker, you are to allocate 5 minutes each, it will consume away the entire afternoon. So we have to find a formula on how to handle statements. And you saw last week, Mr. Speaker, my distinguished brother from Garissa said it all on the floor. When he read a statement and when we interrogated him, he said, I didn't say it, I just read it. Meaning, Mr. Speaker, that...
What's your point of order?
I said it might be in the statement. I never read it and I never said it. Okay?
Okay, Senator. Proceed,
Mr.
Senator.
Speaker, the long and short of it is that the chairman carried a statement from the executive and he disowned the content. What we want, Mr. Speaker, is a responsibility for whoever brings the statement. And the reason sometimes the chairman fumble with statements is because they're given to them as they walk into the chamber. Sometimes they're not even able to interrogate the ministries that are sources of these statements. The National Assembly tried, Mr. Speaker, last Parliament to get ministers to answer statements and questions in the House, but they didn't succeed. Taking a cue from what the majority leader said about the committee system, perhaps we could also encourage members who bring statements here to prosecute their statements in committees where ministers can be summoned and any member interested in prosecuting a similar statement can appear, and you can use the parliamentary broadcasting system, because sometimes, Mr. Speaker, during statement hour, members also want to play to the gallery for their constituents. You can also encourage the live coverage for those committees when those statements are being interrogated. The second issue, Mr. Speaker, that the liaison committee should address is the inability of this House to prosecute petitions. Our rules are very clear. 60 days
must be the time within which a petition is received, presented, interrogated, and a report tabled on the floor of this House. We, however, have had no situation, Mr. Speaker, apart from one or two, where a petition has been processed within the requisite 60 days. So I would want this House also to address, because when wananchi bring their petitions to this House, it means they have failed elsewhere. They have tried at the county level. They have found it unnecessary to go to the National Assembly. They have found it unnecessary to pursue the executive. So they come to this House to seek justice. And last Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we had petitions that lasted 4 years and lapsed with the House. I think we need also a better system of managing those petitions when they come to this House. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, we'll end up just being a house of crumbling cards and not doing much to wananchi.
Senator Kabaka Boniface.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Sorry first because I came late when you had recognized one of the schools from my county, Machakos. Let me take this opportunity first as the Senator of Machakos to welcome one of my schools known as Sengani Girls Secondary School. For those who don't know, it is situated in Matungulu sub-county of Machakos. Your visit to this Senate today is a learning experience of how one of the three arms of the government here in Parliament functions. Our roles, when you go back to school, you read the Constitution Article 96, subsection 1, A, B, C, D. Therein you will find the functions of a Senate. Lastly, let this visit to the Senate be a motivational avenue of you students to work hard in school so that one day you may become legislators or future leaders to serve the society. Thank you so much. God bless.
Okay, thank you, honorable senators. I think the issues that have been raised have been noted, and when the matter is being discussed by the liaison committee and later the senators, I think we'll get a way forward so that we are not caught in a situation like what we are today. Next order.
Just wait. Order number 3, messages.
Honorable, a message from the National Assembly, subject passage of the Physical Planning Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2017, the Irrigation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2017, and the Kenya Roads Bill, National Assembly Bill number 47 of 2017. So, honorable senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 41.3 and 4, I have received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage by the Assembly of the Physical Planning Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2017, the Irrigation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2017, and the Kenya Roads Bill, National Assembly Bill number 47 of 2017. Pursuant to the provisions of the Standing Orders 41 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the Physical Planning Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2017, was published via Kenya Gazette Supplement number 143 of 18th September 2017 to repeal and replace the Physical Planning Act number 6 of 1996 to provide for the planning, use, regulation, and development of land in Kenya. Whereas on 3rd May 2018, the National Assembly considered and passed the said bill with amendments and in the form attached hereto. Further, whereas the Irrigation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2017 was published via Kenya Gazette Supplement number 183 of 1st December 2017 to promote and regulate the development and management of irrigation in Kenya. And whereas the National Assembly considered and passed the said bill with amendments of 19th and 24th April 2018 and in the form attached hereto. Further, whereas the Kenya Roads Bill number, National Assembly Bill number 47 of 2017 was published via Kenya Gazette Supplement number 184 of 6 December 2017 to give effect to the 4th schedule of the Constitution in relation to the road subsector to review, consolidate and rationalize the legal and institutional framework for the management of the road network and road subsector in a more efficient and effective manner. And whereas the National Assembly considered and passed the bill with amendments on 19th April 2018 and in the form attached hereto, now therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Order 41 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby refer the bill to the Senate for consideration. Honorable Senators, Standing Orders number 151 requires that bills originating in the National Assembly be proceeded with by the Senate in the same manner as bills introduced in the Senate by way of first reading in accordance with Standing Order number 133. I therefore direct that the Physical Planning Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2017, the Irrigation Bill, National Assembly Bill number 46 of 2017, and the Kenya Roads Bill, National Assembly Bill number 47 of 2017, be read a first time tomorrow, Wednesday, 15th May 2018. I thank you.
Next order. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise under Standing Order number 44 to read a message from the Governor of Makueni County to the Senate, His Excellency Professor Kivutha Kibwana, regarding the disaster reporting a request for assistance on the recent disasters. The letter is dated 11th of May 2018, addressed to yourself, Mr. Speaker. It reads as follows. Dear Sir, disaster report and request for assistance. The above subject refers. I wish to bring to your attention the devastating effects of the heavy rains and resultant loss of lives and property due to the flooding situation in Makueni County and our urgent need for assistance. Towards mitigation of the same, we have done a comprehensive mapping of the quantification of the damage incurred so far. This has been done jointly with the national government agencies, member of the County Assembly, the Kenya Red Cross, and other multi-sectoral players. The damage is massive, and the estimates in the immediate repairs and humanitarian assistance is Kenya shillings 1,134,200,354 Kenya shillings. We estimate the cost to complete the repairs and restoration of people's livelihoods will be over 2 billion shillings. In summary, Mr. Speaker, Makueni has lost 18 people due to the rains. At least 26 dams have been washed away. 58 dams have been eroded, requiring urgent repair work. Almost all our roads have been rendered impassable, with several drifts and bridges cut off or washed away, rendering places inaccessible. People's homes have been destroyed by floods or mudslides, leaving them homeless and vulnerable. 263 school toilets have been sunk and collapsed, and 55 classrooms have been destroyed. Families have lost livestock and farm crop, among other resultant misfortunes. On 30th of April 2018, I convened a meeting of all leadership of the county, including the county commissioner, representatives of the departments of the national government, members of parliament, members of the county executive, members of Makueni County Assembly, the clergy, and other stakeholders to enable us jointly deliberate and address ourselves to the devastating situation. Subsequently, the County Assembly of Makueni, during its 31st sitting held on 2nd of May 2018, passed a resolution on the establishment of an ad hoc rapid response committee to address the effects of the floods in the county. I have attached the copy of the resolutions. The committee was charged with the coordinating efforts.
What's your point of order, Senator Halaki?
Mr. Speaker, are we in order to be discussing the economics of these devastating floods alongside these deaths, before we even acknowledge the deaths first and really accord our dearly departed, a sense of, because the last time we have had deaths being acknowledged in this house.
Point of order.
The point of order is...
Point of order, Senator. This is a statement.
Yes.
Once it is made, you can now rise to make your points.
No, but my issue with is that it's just being lined across, the deaths, the economic
Order,
things.
member. We are not yet there. Just be patient.
Okay.
We are going to get there. Senator Mutula Kilonzo, proceed.
Thank you, Speaker. Let me see whether I can find where I was. I found the paragraph. The committee was charged with coordinating efforts geared towards addressing the effects of the floods in the county and identifying the necessary emergency responses. A comprehensive report of the status is attached. Now, therefore, Mr. Speaker, the purpose of this letter is to request for the urgent intervention of the Senate towards the giving relevant ministries, agencies, and arms of national government to offer assistance to our county towards humanitarian assistance, reconstruction, and recovery efforts. Mr. Speaker, I hereby kindly request your office to deliver our request to the Senate pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44 of the Standing Orders of the Senate. Yours faithfully, Kivutha Kibwana, Governor, Makueni County.
Senator Imana Malaki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following the statement that's just been read, I'd like also to say that I had already requested for a motion in this House due to the deaths in Kaapero. But what I get here is a mere statement. This is a situation where...
Order, member. Order. You are raising... Order.
No order, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senator.
Where death is concerned...
Order.
We cannot say,
Order.
We cannot have any order.
Order.
Yes. I cannot just... You cannot just...
Order. Honorable Senator, I know you are raising a very important matter, but it's a completely different subject matter from what is being discussed. We'll give you an opportunity to raise your statement when the time comes. Senator Murkomen.
I think, Mr. Speaker, we must, first of all, this is the first statement of its kind in this House conveyed by a governor of a county. And, Mr. Speaker, we must congratulate and laud the efforts of Governor Professor Kivutha Kibwana for recognizing formally, Mr. Speaker, that the right entity whose responsibility is to protect and defend counties and represent the interest is the Senate. Mr. Speaker, that's why I thought Professor from Turkana, Senator, should wait a little bit because his governor has not sent their message here yet, and the subject is different. But on this one, we must really, as a Senate, recognize those governors that appreciate the constitutional responsibility of different institutions, and Senate being a voice of counties, Mr. Speaker, as a mechanism of transmitting that information to national government. And I think, Mr. Speaker, this is a call to all counties, Mr. Speaker, to work with us closely in addressing such issues. I know that the damage caused by floods in the country is all over, in different places, in different parts. But what is important to notice there is that Senate will always be the guarantor of any agreements or any processes the national government will want to undertake with county governments, even where a request has been made by the county government, so that if it is a conditional grant, for example, or assistance given by national government, or partnership, we can be able to say, like the national government announced the other day that they have spent 600 million to deal with the issue of floods. Senate should be able, because disaster is a function of both national and county government, we should be able to follow those resources to understand how much has gone to which county under what framework, so that the legal framework must even be thought through by this House that can assist counties to partner on matters of disaster with national government and make sure that money can be accounted for. Because sometimes some counties will receive money from national government and steal the county money and pretend that they also put it in the disaster. Or there will be a situation where national government will say they have put money in county X, but the national government officials steal the money and it's only county money that is used. That level of accountability must be achieved. And I think when we look at the disaster law and the framework, these are some of the issues that we must address. I must congratulate my former lecturer, Professor Kibwana, for being in the forefront, and also through his Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., congratulate him for the fantastic work he has been doing insofar as development of Makueni County is concerned. And I'm sure that the next governor, who most likely is in this House, will follow suit, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Moses Wetangula.
I also salute my good teacher, Professor Kivutha Kibwana, for not only sending a message here, but leading the queue of governors to recognize the importance of this House in protecting and defending devolution. Mr. Speaker, the Standing Order 44, under which the message has been delivered, gives the chair authority to exercise her discretion to appoint a day for consideration of the message. That is Standing Order 44.6b. I want to encourage you, Mr. Speaker, that in exercise of your discretion under that standing order, you give this House an hour or two, either today or tomorrow, so that we can ventilate exhaustively, not only on the plight of Makueni, but the plight caused by devastating floods countrywide. Mr. Speaker, if you look at what's going on in the country, following the unusual heavy rains that we have had in the last 2 months, you start wondering whether there is government. Because anywhere where there is emergency intervention, it is only Red Cross that you see. Ordinarily, Mr. Speaker, in a situation like this, you would be seeing the Army, NYS everywhere on hand to help people who have been displaced by floods. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that we have much more to say and that you allocate time for us to debate and consider this statement in the global picture of how floods have devastated and affected livelihoods across the country. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Senator Borgisho Samuel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to add my voice to congratulating Governor Kibwana for really, as has been said, setting the pace in the trend, the mode, and the nature of expressing support for this House. And I think that, Mr. Speaker, with the kind of person who has gone ahead and even made calculations for the losses in terms of almost exact how much it's going to cost, that it behooves of us to help in the manner in which we should help. And so I do want to support the statement and encourage governors to recognize that there is a procedure in a way that they can reach this House.
That the national government was retaining disaster management was too much and was unnecessary. And for me, I believe this is part of the call to action, that in future, as we divide revenue between national and county governments, this Senate must stand firm and send more money to the counties for disaster management, because that is where these disasters happen. What the national government is doing right now in response to disasters in the counties is to distribute relief food. Mr. Speaker, even in my village, where we don't have a flood disaster, I'm seeing relief food coming around. Mr. Speaker, we are now making poverty something to celebrate. You'd rather give my people seed and fertilizer to plant rather than giving them relief food in the name of disaster management. Mr. Speaker, I beg the House that we move. Unfortunately, we do not have powers on supplementary budgets, but in future, we move and say that most of the disaster management funds should go to the counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Halake Abshiba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will also add my voice to congratulate Governor Kibwana and Senator Kajwang for being always the first to get it right with regards to partnership and collaborations for impact. But I know everybody has jumped on congratulating Governor Kibwana for what I consider to be not the right reasons, which was to recognize this house as the one that will do all these things, and that the house is the one that, you know. And in the process, we then lose what the call to action, as Senator Kajwang has mentioned, really is, because we're so happy and pleased with ourselves that we've been recognized by Governor Kibwana and Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Now, the disaster management of this country, of course, we've seen the weaknesses that has happened. We've seen how we are definitely not resilient when it comes to, our institutions are not ready for these things and for the magnitudes that we saw the other day. I know Governor Kibwana is looking to us to legislate and to provide the frameworks that would provide both, not just the legal framework and the legislative framework, but also the resources that would go to counties. So I'm happy that Senator Wetangula has said that we need to discuss this further with a view to ensuring that we see and decipher what exactly needs to happen for certain impacts to be achieved, and for us to then build resilient communities and institutions that can actually deal with disasters in this country. It's been said that Makueni is one of the Makueni is one of the shining examples of a working county, and I congratulate them for that. And therefore today, even reaching out to Senate is definitely a very good point in the right direction. But the disaster legislations that always come with an institution or a layer of coordination or another parastatal that should take care of all these disasters. But for me, what I should look at as somebody that comes from a background of managing disasters is for us to strengthen existing structures, existing systems, and the county governments to be able to be the first responders, because when you have somebody coming from somewhere else, the result is always death and devastation. So again, I think as we consider this and as we deliberate on this and debate this, let's look at how we'll make our local units and our systems to work. At the same time, again, Mr. Speaker, we have a very strong and robust Red Cross system in our, the Kenya Red Cross is a very able and very robust
keep
humanitarian.
your comments brief, Honorable.
Yes, I will. Humanitarian organization. I think we need to look at how to strengthen these organizations and resource them so that they can then continue to serve. And just to echo what Senator Kajwang has said, disaster management is not about relief food, and I hope that we'll look at disaster management from the angle of mass casualty incident command, mass casualty management, and the early warning systems and early response systems that then would make sure. At the same time, we know that corruption is linked directly to disasters in our country. How do we then make sure our institutions and our people are less corrupt and they do what they're supposed to do as a mitigative measure for disasters in our country? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Samson Ongeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to add my voice to a continuing disaster which is taking place in our country. Governor Kivuta Kibwana has given us a wake-up call to a situation which I feel that there's so much human loss. And my first reaction, Mr. Speaker, to that message is to be able to send our messages of condolence as a house to the people of Makueni and other counties who have been devastated by these floods and by these disasters. That should be the first call of action from this house, to say we are very sorry for the loss of human life. Secondly, I think I may be wrong, Mr. Speaker, but I sense that the action from the side of the national government has been wanting. And I think we should be able to roll out the sleeves through this house to be able to look at the various mechanisms through which we can be able to address disaster management in this nation. So disaster preparedness and the consequences arising out of the disasters that we see, like the flooding now. And the next thing I expect to see is cholera and other infectious diseases because of stagnant pools of water all over the place, including malaria and other infectious diseases. And I think a nation of the Kenyan reputation must rise to the occasion of being able to address the disaster management in a much more efficient manner. And I think this House, Mr. Speaker, under your watch, we should be able to legislate on how resources can be allocated at such a moment in times of a crisis, not to wait for regular budgets. And I think the Disaster Management Fund, we now need to look at it and the way that fund is being managed as a way forward for call for action. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, I know there are other statements that will be relating on a similar matter, and therefore I wish to make a conclusion on this. That Honorable Senator Standing Order number 44 outlines the procedure on exchange of messages between the Senate and the county governments and consideration by the Senate of messages received from the county governors. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order number 44-6, and looking at the options that are provided for, I direct that the message be referred to the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations for its consideration, and the said committee should prepare and table a report on this message in not more than 14 days from today. Next message. Susan. Senator Wetangula.
Of order is two-pronged. Number one, this is an emergency and is requesting for emergency intervention. 2 weeks is too long. This is a matter for which the committee can drop everything and burn their midnight oil to consider the matter in the context of an emergency. So I would request, Mr. Speaker, that a week will even be too long. Number two, Mr. Speaker, given the complexity of the matter and the far-reaching recommendations that may come out of this matter can be considered by two committees: the Defense and Foreign Relations, which deals with disasters, and the Finance Committee, that will also be able to deal with the matter of figures, to communicate with the national government to deal with the matter.
What's your point of order, Senator?
I think your order is quite in order, in view of the fact that although the matter is very urgent, the committee cannot deal with it within a week or so, because we have to put a notice in the papers for public participation. And not only that, on Thursday this week, we have people coming to present their views on how to do better management of disaster, Mr. Speaker. So the matter is urgent, yes, but let us not hurry and spoil everything. Let us do it in a measured manner. Thank you.
Honorable members, I think in my ruling I said within 14 days. It can be after 1 day, 3 days. If they expedite and move faster, that will be good because it's an emergency, but it should not go beyond 14 days. That's why I said within 14 days. And I agree that the committee finance can also be incorporated in because of the financial implications. Next order.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate. Today, Tuesday, 15th May 2018. Report of the proceedings of the first extraordinary session of the Plenary Assembly of the Forum of Parliaments of Member States of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region, FPSICGLR, held in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo from the 19th to 20th March 2018. Thank you, Speaker.
There's another paper.
Speaker, sir, Deputy Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, 15th May 2018. Report on the proceeding of the interparliamentary hearing at the United Nations, New York, USA, from 22nd to 23rd February 2018.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Notices of motion. Notices of motion. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I give notice of motion that pursuant to Standing Order 17, the Senate approves the nomination of Senator Judith Pareno to replace Senator Cleophas Malala as a member of the Speaker's panel and to further preside over the Senate in the absence of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker pursuant to Standing Order, pursuant to Article 107(1)(c) of the Constitution and Standing Order 5 of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Any other notice of motion? Next order. All right, okay. We have Senator for West Pokot.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I wish to beg to give notice of the following motion. The House adopts a report of the proceedings of the first extraordinary session of the plenary session.
Order, Senator. Order, Senator Pogisio. Is that a notice of motion? Is that a notice of motion? Yes. It is. I heard as if you talked about something else. Proceed, if it is a notice of motion.
I'll give the same notice. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the proceedings of the first extraordinary session of the plenary the Forum of Parliaments of Member States of the International Conference of the Great Lakes Region, FPSICGLR, held in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo, from the 19th to the 20th of March, 2018. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Order, Senators, we proceed on that order, but on the basis of the ruling made earlier by the chair, which is that we shall be looking at statements under 46(2)(a) mainly. And therefore, Senator Susan Kihika, under 46(2)A.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 46(2)A, I rise to make a statement on the Solai Dam tragedy that has caused havoc, deaths, loss of property, livelihoods, and generally disturbed the normal operations of the people of Subukia in Nakuru County and Kenyans in general. This tragedy has indeed pricked the conscience of every Kenyan, and it is a matter of grave concern. I kindly request, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the honorable senators to be upstanding and observe a moment or a minute of silence in honor of the departed souls. Thank you, senators. A minute. Thank you, honorable senators. Mr. Speaker, sir, on Thursday, May 10th, Kenyans were woken by tragic news of Solai Dam tragedy, which had swept away whole villages on Wednesday night. This privately owned dam broke its banks at around 8 p.m. on Wednesday night, and its wake left 47 lives lost in the most unfortunate circumstances, most of them being small school-going children. Over 500 families are now homeless, with orphans and destitute among them. Majority of these people who had their own habitations, whether own homes, rental, or farm quarters, are now camping in tents at Solai High School grounds, where well-wishers are supporting them with foodstuffs, blankets, mattresses, and other types of clothing. It is indeed a human catastrophe. Several others are undergoing treatment at the levels 4 and 5 medical facilities within Nakuru County. I also wish to commend the good work of the Red Cross of Kenya for their swift action upon receiving the information of the dam tragedy. A disaster management center to provide counseling information and have attended to survivors of the tragedy, as well as the coordinated dissemination of updates to media and the affected locals on the tragedy was set up. I also commend the national government on its response with a high-powered team of Cabinet Secretary for Interior, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa of Devolution, Cabinet Secretary Chelugui of Water, our Defense Forces disaster team, and officials from the National Disaster Management Center to assess the damage and humanitarian impact, advise on immediate remedial actions, as well as commission the rescue, recovery, and support mechanisms. Mr. Speaker, sir, I take this moment to note the visit to Solai area of Subukia constituency of the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Relations of the Senate, led by Chairman Senator Yusuf Haji, and committee members Senator Fatuma Dulo, Senator Kwamboka, and myself. The committee conducted a fact-finding mission on this horrific dam tragedy by touring the Killer Dam and other dams in the farm. While the committee was on tour, a body was discovered, and it raises the question as to why the recovery efforts were hurriedly called off while some families still report they have missing persons. I do hope and I look forward to the committee's findings being tabled in this House with the recommendations on how to deal with this tragedy to its final conclusion and also prevent occurrences of such tragedies in the future. On behalf of Nakuru leaders and the people of Nakuru County, we are indeed very grateful and appreciate all well-wishers for the donations made so far and the prayers from all Kenyans. A multi-agency committee that has been coordinating the recovery efforts, support to surviving families, receiving, storage, and distribution of donations, planning and preparation for the burial arrangements for the victims is in place, under the coordination of the regional commissioner and local leaders. The final interdenominational prayers are scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday, 16th May 2018, to bid farewell to the victims and release their bodies for burial by their families. Mr. Speaker, sir, reports from initial investigations indicate that a wall of the dam built on high ground plunged down the dark canyon, sweeping homes, cars, mud, and huge rocks towards Sleeping Village. The floodwaters and tumbling debris hit the Nyakenywa village at high speed, washing away homes at the neighboring Energy Village in pitch darkness. It destroyed everything in its path, including a primary school and power lines. The Killer Dam is owned by one Mansukul Patel, a farmer with over 2,000 acres in that area. The dam lies adjacent to River Kabazi, collecting water from the river and draining it to another dam next to Kamukonji Trading Center. The Patel farm, or Mimet Solai, has a horticulture farm, coffee plantation, and also involved in dairy farming. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the Solai area where this farm is located, access to the expansive farm with 7 dams is strictly restricted. The farm is neighbor to Marigo, Nyakenywa, Solai, and Kabazi villages. Although the Patel family has been involved in a number of community social responsibility, such as building a classroom in Solai Secondary School and equipping a local health center, they have completely denied surrounding communities access and sharing water from the several dams, but also have diverted 2 rivers in the area and have made it impossible for the people of that area to get any water because the water does not flow out of their property, which is highly restricted. Mr. Speaker, sir, water is a natural resource whose management is by the national government under the Constitution. However, recently through negotiations, the national government ceded the management of water companies and other water resources in the counties to county governments as a step towards effective service delivery under the devolved system of governance. The Water Act of 2002 created the Water Resource Management Authority, WARMA, as a semi-autonomous government institution and a key state corporation under the Ministry of Water. The Kenya Water Resource Management Authority's overall development objective is to ensure rational, effective management of water resources. But the questions that come to mind is how are earth dams licensed, and are there regular inspections and adherence standards which dam owners must comply to? What are the regulations on construction, usage, sharing of the dammed water, and even insurance aspects in relation to this dam? Mr. Speaker, sir, here WARMA is squarely on the spot for sleeping on their mandate. As a regulatory authority in this regard, the buck is on their table. The very acknowledgement that WARMA knew of the dams, that there has been visits to their Solai farm, and there has been reports on the concerns noted and the actions called for, points to a very carefree approach and attitude on the part of the authority, especially in the Nakuru office. How could they just let the owner of the dams escape their demands to first regularize them, meet the set standard, and allow the officials access for regular inspection? The blame game witnessed so far between the farm management and WARMA has not helped explain why 47 lives have been lost. The legality of the dams is clearly in doubt. WARMA officers allege that WARMA has ordered them to regularize the ill-fated dams. This is utterly ridiculous and irresponsible, to say the least. How can they license a structure whose construction they did not inspect? Mr. Speaker, sir, these dams are expected to be insured in event of such eventualities, of bursting the embankment walls and causing deaths and destruction, as the Solai Dam has done. Mansukul Patel, the owner of the illegal dams, must be held accountable. He should by now have been arraigned in a court of law, as we have seen with the owners of buildings that collapse, killing Kenyans. And if found culpable, he must compensate all the families for the losses suffered. The order by the Cabinet Secretary for Water and Sanitation needs to also be followed for inspection with immediate remedial actions of dams across the country. It is unfortunate that the Solai Dam will call for a task force and indeed the said inspection of earth dams in the country, a further wastage of public resources as a result of officers' negligence and business people who are a law unto themselves. These deaths could have been prevented and destruction to property could have been avoided had WARMA acted decisively on the residents' complaints of spillage in 2015, which caused a scare though no life or property was lost. And had they taken action, this occurrence 2 years ago, this occurrence 2 years later would have been prevented. Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a principle on destruction of environment, especially on pollution, which is called the polluter pays principle. This principle demands, indeed compels, any person, be it an individual or corporation, to compensate for any pollution their actions by omission or commission may lead to pollution of the environment. I'm drawing this principle because as a senator for Nakuru and as a leader and as a mother, I cannot comprehend how the families now camped at Solai High School in tents will normalize their lives. How are these poor people expected to pick up their pieces and move on with life? What pieces, anyway, are there to pick up? And everything was washed away by the raging floods of the dam. I wish to ask this Senate to support me and the leaders of Nakuru in demanding for justice and fair treatment of these victims. While the national government has offered support to cater for funeral expenses of the victims, the challenges of survivors remains, and this is not enough. We must do more. There are also issues of labor and employment laws which need to come out, whereas the national government has set a minimum wage for the lowest paid workers in this country. Solai Farm has blatantly been operating outside these basic minimum salaries and wages. The elephant in the room, however, is the compensation of both the families of the deceased victims and the surviving families, many who are employed in this Solai Farm. Solai Farm management has to shoulder that burden as the loss occurred due to their own intransigence and failure to adhere to set regulations on constructing, maintaining, and managing earth dams. What compensation will the farm owner undertake in regard to the environment where trees, vegetation, top fertile soils were washed away?
Order, Senator Susan Kehika. I do appreciate how serious and grave and touching this issue is. But the standing order gives you a maximum of 10 minutes, so I hope you are conscious of that.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So in conclusion, what compensation will the farm owner undertake in regard to the environment where trees, vegetation, top fertile soils were washed away and land left bare, rocks and boulders jutting out as well? Previous arable and productive lands are now like a desert. Mr. Speaker, sir, disaster occurrence anywhere causes panic, confusion, huge losses, and hence demands decisive and prompt responses. I look forward to the Senate this week to what's coming on the floor of the Senate as far as the National Disaster Management Bill, which will go a long way towards helping us bring sanity to these sorts of situations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Order, Senator. Order, Senator. Order, Senator Kehika. If you want to communicate to the chair, you know what to do. And that does not include what you are doing now.
Mr. Speaker, sir, kindly, could I have an additional 3 minutes and I will be done? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Okay, Mr. Speaker, sir, disaster occurrence anywhere causes panic, confusion, huge losses, and hence demands decisive and prompt responses. The Senate and indeed every Kenyan need to ask if the country, whenever a disaster occurs, is the speed of responses by the national and also county governments appropriate. When fires happen in Nairobi and elsewhere, when vehicle accidents happen, when people drown or buildings collapse, do we respond in time and as prepared? Is the country's disaster response up to the expected standards in terms of personnel and equipment? These are provocative questions, lamentations, and open concerns that need real answers. The Senate has debated the national disaster policy and approved the same. Question is, has it been operationalized? While the Red Cross as well as the National Disaster Management Authority has swift and prompt response in event of reported disasters, other supportive government agencies take unnecessarily long to respond, leave alone being actively engaged in the rescue, recovery, support, and mitigation activities. These situations need to change. County governments are also expected under the policy on national disaster management to have county disaster management committees and to set aside a percentage of the allocated revenues to a disaster fund, which would support disaster that may occur in their areas. It is high time counties took the issue of disaster seriously, and especially on quick responses. Counties need to appreciate their unique environments and be prepared to mitigate for any eventual disasters. Counties are prone to floods, others to landslides, forest fires, industrial accidents, and so forth. Continuous capacity building of personnel and members of public with inspections of various potential disasters by the County Disaster Committee needs to be regular. Only by being alert, responsible, and prepared will the country lessen the impact of disasters to our people. The National Disaster Management Policy behooves all stakeholders to be well acquainted with its operations and how every Kenyan, especially the mandated agencies, keep themselves prepared, both in resources and personnel, and to management disasters of all kinds, if and whenever they occur. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Senator Kihika. I will give this chance to just a couple of other senators to make their comments. Be brief, specific to the point. Leader Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I'd like to pass my deep condolences to the families and relatives of the people who lost their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, that was a very horrendous incident. Mr. Speaker, from the facts that are coming out, I think, Mr. Speaker, that is perhaps, having consulted many people who know the history of this country, that must be the worst water tragedy we have ever, Mr. Speaker, witnessed in this nation. And sadly, Mr. Speaker, to know that it has occurred as a result of negligence. And that there is a possibility that, Mr. Speaker, that would have been avoided. I know our committee, and I want to thank the chair of the Security Committee, plus its members, including the Senator of Nakuru. The Senator of Nakuru is the whip of this Senate majority side, Mr. Speaker, has been very, very vocal on these issues. And Mr. Speaker, she has been the voice of the weak in the Nakuru County, Subukia and Solai itself. And Mr. Speaker, those people need a voice. And sometimes at such situations, it is possible that we are dealing with very wealthy people. And it is easy for leaders to fear to speak their mind because, Mr. Speaker, they think that they will be offending the rich. And I saw your clip, Mr. Speaker, which is circulating all over, that you said, Mr. Speaker, that if it was a senator who was swept or an elected leader, the whole country would have been mobilized to do something. I think as leaders, we must be compassionate enough, like it was shown by Senator Haji and his team, to be able to address this issue and to find and to go to the bottom of this issue. Mr. Speaker, it is very sad that when such incidents occur, Mr. Speaker, suddenly we know there is an institution called WARMA. Suddenly we know that there is an institution that is supposed to inspect and give licenses to people who are owning dams. And Mr. Speaker, you wonder, we were giving these institutions resources. What was their work? Why is it that suddenly we are saying we will inspect the dams in this country? Why do we have to wait until people die that people now can start saying we want to start doing the job? Mr. Speaker, the investigation being carried by the committee of this House, by the necessary government agencies, the DPP, the police department, and every other agency involved in this matter, must, Mr. Speaker, tell the nation who is responsible. If that person had the right licenses, who gave him those right licenses? If he didn't have the license, Mr. Speaker, how did he end up, keeping a dam of that magnitude without due regard to the effects that would have caused? Mr. Speaker, I think the impact and the cause of this, the deaths that have been caused by this disaster, Mr. Speaker, is a wake-up call for all of us as citizens of this republic to be able to become conscious enough of the things that we want to do and their impact on the lives of the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Senator Susan Kihika, and I want to encourage her that she must continue speaking. She must continue being the voice. She must continue fighting for the compensation of those people, Mr. Speaker, because even if you look under the rule of Rylands v. Fletcher, Mr. Speaker, whether you talk about the question of compensation for those people, Mr. Speaker, or criminal liability on the part of Mr. Patel and his team, Mr. Speaker, there is enough law in this country. There is enough legislation in this country is capable of holding every person who is responsible for that matter. I thank the Minister of Water, Mr. Simon Chelugui, because he went there immediately. I know he came recently. He must now hold the agencies, including Warma itself, to account on the work they have been doing over the years insofar as dams in this country is concerned. And this is also a wake-up call for us to think about other institutions or other potentially dangerous investments in this country that may explode and kill many people, like we've seen in pipelines, Mr. Speaker, that are in slum areas. We've seen in electricity poles that are hanging wires that are hanging all over. We should not wait until hundreds or thousands of people die for us to come back here and say that investigation must be done. Every department of government must be able to be diligent enough in what they do. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support and request that this House and our committee continue with the investigation they were doing and come back to this House with very strong recommendations that are actionable. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Leader of Majority. I gave you an additional few minutes, although you didn't use them as one would have expected. Because, you know, you'd have told the country what is relance and fledger in the terms that everyone in this country can understand, that if you keep a dangerous thing in your compound, whatever it is, and it escapes and injures a third party, there are no two ways about it. You have to compensate and pay for that injury. I thought that would have been against who? There is nothing which can be out of order from this side. From this side, there can be no point of information. Towards this side. To who? To who? Order, Majority Leader. Order, Majority Leader. Leader of Majority, order. Nevertheless, well spoken. The rest of us, the rate of interest is very high. That is understandable because this matter is grave, it's serious. Many of our citizens are mourning their loved ones. Nevertheless, because of the constraints of time, I'll try and make sure that everybody has a chance of 2 minutes to give their condolences and maybe add a point that they think has not been brought out. But please don't repeat what has been said by Senator Susan Kihika and the Leader of Majority. So straight away, I'll give this the first 2 minutes to Senator Kabaka of Machakos County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me take this opportunity also to send my condolences to the people of Nakuru. And I also congratulate the Senator of Nakuru, Senator Kihika, for the work you've been doing. We've seen you from the screen. God bless you. But what I want to add is that, and I saw Senator Wetangula, intercept somehow when the Speaker was talking about the rule in Rayland versus Fletcher. I want to remind them, I'm not repeating, but that was the words of, the way you are put, Mr. Speaker, the words of Lord Blackburn, as it was, 1846, I think that is the case. What I want to say is that disasters of this nature, of this magnitude, and I've seen former MP of Laikipia, if I'm not wrong, Honorable Koingi Wamwere, say that he has given a lot of warnings that the other dams, which are almost about to burst. So I hope those relevant bodies have watched that and they should take that seriously. Disasters of this magnitude, like we have said, in law, in such a situation, are no defense. I've seen the owner of the same trying to say that this was an act of God. But here, we are saying this is not an act of God because God did not build the dam as to where. The other aspect is that disasters of this magnitude range from disaster to disaster. For example, we've had in India the Chernobyl disaster. We have also had disasters in Japan, where we had nuclear explodes, and that has caused a lot of problems, a lot of death. Now that even Kenya now is embracing nuclear technology, we are saying that we must have, and this house must be very careful that proper measures are put in place as we embrace technology. Thank you. I support.
Thank you. Senator Cheragay, Nandi. Senator Samson Cheragay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to, from the onset, to join my rest of colleagues and the country at large to pass, on behalf of the great people of Nandi County and on my own accord, to pass our deepest condolences to the families of the tragic Solai Dam that happened a few days ago. I want to thank the Senator of Nakuru, Senator Kihiga, for standing with her people. We have noted, and I want also to thank the Committee on Security, led by Chairman Yusuf Haji, Senator Yusuf Haji, for that intervention, and many agencies. Mr. Speaker, I want also to pass our deepest condolences to the families also that are affected by issues of floods across the country. And I think there are many issues that are happening because of vagaries of weather. It should, the rain should be a blessing, Mr. Speaker. As a farmer, and where we celebrate rain, it should come with blessings, not disasters that we have. And I hope the agencies, Mr. Speaker, such as been mentioned, like Warma, that they must take responsibility. If there was any element of negligence in any form, they must be held accountable, Mr. Speaker, sir, so that in future we don't have to pay the highest price of losing lives, Mr. Speaker. I think, Mr. Speaker, I want to continue as the Senator of Nakuru and even leaders and even all of us to continue condemning where it is. I know the person who owns that dam is a bit maniac or a man of means and influence and has influence. Therefore, we should stand up so that the poor Wanjikus do not suffer at the hands of others, Mr. Speaker, sir. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, even as we go forward, I think it is not sufficient or even enough that the people.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Mwinyi Mohamed Faki, Mombasa.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kujiunga na Senator wa Nakuru, Senator Susan Kihika na maseneta wote kuomboleza vifo vya watu karibia 50 kutokana na mkasa wa kupasuka kwa bwawa la Solai. Mheshimiwa Spika, yasikitisha kwamba mkasa kama huu umeweza kutokea wakati huu sasa ambapo nchi yetu tunajivuna kwamba tunapiga hatua kimaendeleo ya kila aina. Ni wazi kwamba mikasa kama hii itaendelea kutokea kutokana na utepetevu ambao unafanyika na wafanyakazi wa serikali na mashirika ambao si ya serikali. Ningependa pia kuchukua fursa hii kuwatia moyo watu wa Nakuru na hususan Senator Kihika kwamba haya mambo asiachie hapo. Tuliona kwamba mwaka 1993 kule Mombasa feri ya Mtongwe ilizama na watu 250 walipoteza maisha yao. Na jambo kubwa la kusikitisha ni kwamba mpaka leo wale wahanga wa mkasa ule hawajaweza kulipwa malipo ambayo serikali imechukua ahadi mara kwa mara kusema wataweza kulipa na wasilipe. Kwa hivyo mikasa kama hii itaendelea kutokea mpaka pale siku ambayo tutaweza kukaa chini kama wananchi wa Kenya na kusema yametosha. Wale wanaofanya mikasa kama hii lazima wafungwe kuhakikisha kwamba jambo kama hili halitokei tena. Kule South Korea miaka 2 iliyokwisha feri ilizama na waziri mkuu
utajiuzulu. Senator Professor Margaret Kamara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I would like to join my colleagues in passing my very sincere condolences to the people of Nakuru and to our sister, Senator Kihika. Mr. Speaker, all of us were horrified by what happened in Nakuru. I happen, Mr. Speaker, to be a soil and water conservationist. And when we are dealing with water conservation through dam construction, it is very clear that dam construction is an all technical area in itself. It is not about creating a storage place for water, but it's about measuring to know what would happen, the worst incident that can happen over time. Mr. Speaker, there are rainfall occurrences that you can only see once in your lifetime because they occur every 100 years. And we normally say when you are doing dam construction, you must construct for the storm that peaks only once in 100 years. It looks like this was not done for this dam. And my own question is focused on who constructed this dam. Was it the farmer who did the construction? Did he hire a technical team? And if he did, who are the scientists or the engineers who did the construction? Because it starts from the collection, where you are collecting the water from, to the embankment that you are building so that it is not destroyed. We do know that over time, anything wears and gets old. But we are aware that for that to happen, we should not.
Professor, time is up. Please organize your thoughts, be brief, condolences, and maybe 1 or 2 points. Okay? Other senators, before we proceed, I have a communication to make regarding visiting students and teachers from Maryhill Girls High School from Kiambu County. I don't know whether they are still with us. They have left. Nevertheless, I think we should acknowledge that they visited the Senate today. Maryhill Girls High School, Kiambu County, and that they are welcome in the Senate in our usual tradition, and then on behalf of all of us, on behalf of the Senate, we wish them a fruitful visit if they are still within the premises of Parliament. Thank you. Very well. Senator Wetangula.
I join the House in condoling the people of Nakuru, their senator, their county government, and all the people of Kenya who have lost. Mr. Speaker, this tragedy is of very, very huge proportions. Lives have been lost. I want to urge those who are involved in search and rescue and search and recovery not to close the door yet, because chances are there could be particularly children who could have been swept much further than the areas that they are concentrating on. Number two, Mr. Speaker, rudimentary science and engineering will tell you that when you construct a dam, there must be a spillway, so that when the dam is full, there is a valve through which extra water can flow downstream. Did this dam have a spillway? Because if it didn't have a spillway, then it probably wasn't constructed in a proper manner. Number two, Mr. Speaker, when the water bill came here, I cautioned that we were creating too many institutions within this field of water, that they will keep on piling on each other and not doing the right things. I'm sure if there were periodic inspection of these dams, probably this disaster would have been averted. Number three, Mr. Speaker, people don't just wake up and construct dams. Even if it's your private property, you must seek approval and technical supervision. Was this done in relation with this dam? Number four, Mr. Speaker, as a professor of law, you know that the culpability of this disaster should not be limited to that Mr. Patel. Even the national government is vicariously liable for not doing its supervisory role properly and letting people own dams that are not safe. So the compensation for the victims must go beyond the Patel we are talking about, and the national government must also move in and support the compensation process, because where there is a constructive relationship of agency and principal, the culpability of the principal and the agent is equal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That's another angle of vicarious liability. Senator Fatma Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to confirm to the House that I'm one of the members of the committee who was on the ground. Just a few issues. Mr. Speaker, we were being informed actually by Warma people when they were on the ground that once they issued the license, there is no mechanisms in place to follow up and make sure that those dams are safe. And I think it's high time that we have come up with a legislation to allow Warma to supervise the licenses they have issued to various private dams. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, this will actually inform this country where the private or big farmers who are actually obstructing water downstream from the poor Wananchi. We have a similar situation, Mr. Speaker, in Isiolo, where the rich farmers from Mount Kenya are blocking water coming downstream to Isiolo County. And I think Ministry of Water should investigate all those big farms that are doing that. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, the issue of insurance. I am sure Mr. Patel has not insured his workers. So in the absence of that, he should be held liable. And I'm actually appealing, if there is a mechanism, he has 3,000 acres. Why can't he force to donate 300 to settle those farmers? Because 300 is nothing. Finally, Mr. Speaker, what I really wanted to say is that the situation is a bit better than the previous disasters that you have, where Kenyans really love each other. There was a lot of food coming.
That's what you should have started with. I give you 30 seconds, Senator Dulo, to finalize that thought.
Now, Mr. Speaker, thank you for that, the few seconds that you are giving me. Kenyans really love each other. And we should not take that for granted. Can we, as Kenyans, enforce the legislations we have so that we can hold individuals responsible in this country? For example, Patel is at large. When we have set president in this country, the first thing we announce, arrest the person responsible for that disaster. Mr. Patel, for sure, he has pocketed everybody in Nakuru County. Senator Kihika, you should not relent your effort. Thank you.
All the senators. Senator Ross Nyamunga next, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. First of all, my condolence to the people of Nakuru and to Senator Kihika. I know this is the second time you are being hit by such a tragedy, and we are with you in this. The only thing that I want to say is that this one takes us back to corruption. Because just as already mentioned by Senator Dulo, everybody has been concerned, has been pocketed by this one Patel, this man Patel. So in my view, we should go back to our basics. Kenyans, we are so reactive. We do not plan in advance. We don't do the right things which we are supposed to do in advance. Some of these things should be done. There must be ways of inspections all the time. But you want to wait until such a tragedy strikes. That's where now we look at who should have done what, who didn't do inspection. So I think we are such a reactionary country. We should be proactive to make sure that we don't go through such occurrences in our country. If it is not water, it is about the fire. If it's not about the fire, it's always there. So I think as a nation, we should be on top of things. We should be thinking about our citizens all the time, not only when things occur. I know we have all the structures and all the institutions that should be doing their work, but because of corruption and somebody wants to take something little here and there, we forget about our responsibility and we do the wrong things, and then we end up with such great and bad tragedies. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want to say my condolence on behalf of the people of Kisumu, and we want the people to be compensated, not only the expenses, the funeral expenses, that's nothing. They should be properly compensated so that they can move on with their lives. Thank you.
Senator Mahmood.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me also join the other members in condoling the people of Nakuru for the disaster that has befallen them. So, Speaker, sir, the tragedy that has occurred in Nakuru actually is the first of its type in terms of dam failure in this country. I know that because I work in water for 20 years. I'm a water engineer, and I know how the water ministry is structured. First of all, WARMA has no capacity to design dams and check dams. WARMA's purpose is to allocate water resources in terms of the amount of water that is supposed to actually allow you to take from the river stream. In fact, in terms of design, I think there is a big lacuna, because when all these authorities were made and everybody is making his own dam, the way we are building houses in Kenya, in fact, there is no control. People are just making their own things, and in fact, not knowing that the danger they are subjecting Kenyans to. A dam that breaks. You know, in design of dams, there is something called dam break analysis. If you design a dam, you must clearly, if it breaks, what happens? I took part in the design of the Kaine Dam, and if the Kaine Dam breaks today, Thika will be underwater. And all the towns before Thika will be underwater, will be washed away. That's serious. That's why, you know, when you are designing a dam, you must be able to make sure that the design is proper, and you actually forestall all the dangers. And then you need to inspect properly. I think this is a wake-up call, whereas the people of Nakuru must be compensated. We as a country must now come up with a proper framework to see how our dams are safe, even the ones that are there. A lot of people, especially the flower farmers, are actually damming rivers even without the knowledge of that water you're talking about. I'm not to be surprised even if the licensing was not done properly. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's a very serious matter. It's time that the authorities...
Very well. Senator Pareno.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to condole with Senator Kihika and the families that have been affected in Nakuru. And I take this opportunity to also thank the government for moving very fast to give a fund, which we already were told as a committee that there is a fund for settling these people. But, Mr. Speaker, we as a committee had requested that they continue with the search. By the time the committee was visiting, they were told that they had gone slow on the search. Yet we still have people who are missing, and we have families that are suffering. And for us, we have appealed that the search still continues so that we can get those that are missing. Interestingly, we were told as a committee that this Warma people on the ground had confirmed that they actually had been denied access for inspection. So we were asking, who is this who is above the law? A person who actually denies access for inspection? A person who actually has blocked 2 rivers. The information we have as a committee is that this Patel blocked 2 rivers, and even villagers don't have access to these 2 rivers. So who is this Patel who cannot be arrested after a crime has been committed? Who is this Patel who blocks rivers and denies access to the villagers? And who is this Patel who even denies inspection by Warma? I think somebody is going to be held accountable. Warma, why did you keep quiet when somebody refused access for you to inspect? Warma, why didn't you then press on and tell people that somebody, or take action against somebody who is blocking your work? So I think we have a lot of homework when it comes to either Warma, between Warma and Patel, and I think people should be brought to account. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Maura.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii. Mwanzo nimpongeze Senator Susan Kihika kwa sababu ya kuleta hii hoja bungeni, hususan kwa sababu yeye pia alikuwa juzi na mkasa wa wale vijana ambao walipoteza maisha yao wakati walikuwa katika shughuli zao za kampeni sasa hivi. Lakini ni kusema kwamba yeye pia ni mama mwenye nguvu, kwa sababu kama mama ambaye anasimamia hiyo county, basi ni wajibu wake wa kutetea. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la kushangaza ni kwamba unaposikiza vile ambavyo watu wanasema, ni kana kwamba hizi demu za Patel hakukuwa na ubaya wote ambao ulotendeka, ila hali tunaona kwamba kumekuwa na kuharibika kwa mali kwa njia ya hali ya juu kabisa. Watu wameweza kupoteza maisha yao. Na je, swala kubwa ambalo linajitokeza ni kwamba nchi hii kuna sheria za mabwanyenye na sheria za makaragosi. Watu duni ambao maisha yao hayachukuliwi kwa maana, kwa sababu wao wakifa tu wanakufa kiholela holela. Mheshimiwa Spika, kulingana na kanuni za kutengeneza mabwawa ya maji ni kwamba lazima hii demu lazima ikae kwa miaka zaidi ya 50 ama 100, lakini ujenzi wake lazima uwe unaweza kustahimili miaka 10,000. Hilo hatujaona likitendeka. Tunasikia wakisema kwamba ni kwa sababu ya mvua. Mvua ilitarajiwa, na wakati tunafanya ujenzi huu wa miundombinu, ni muhimu kuhakikisha kwamba tunakadiria majanga kama haya ya kutendeka. Na hii ni demu ya kwanza kufanya hilo. Tunajua kwamba kukiendelea kunyesha, basi tutaona pia majanga mengine ambayo yataweza kutendeka.
Asante sana. Senator Sionga.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much for giving me this chance to join my colleagues, senators, for condoning with the people of Nakuru for the disaster that beneath them. Speaker, sir, I wish to congratulate our able Senator Kihika for standing with the people, with her people in Nakuru County, with the tragedy that befell them. Mr. Speaker, sir, mine is just to urge that the people, our communities need to be sensitized, or our citizens need to be sensitized when tragedies stand by them, and especially when they see that there is a disaster or a disaster that is about to happen in the community, not to keep quiet, because it is important for us not to prevent and not to evade, to prevent this disaster, and not to sit looking for healing process that are taking place in Nakuru right now. Mr. Speaker, sir, we need not to ask why the disaster is to be prevented. It is an obvious reason that we need to prevent these disasters, especially when it comes to fire and the havoc of the rain that are befalling our nation right now. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to support this statement that has been brought to the floor by our speaker, our able Senator, that something needs to be done for the people of Nakuru and the rest of other people that have been in the same situation in this country, like the Sinai people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. Senator Beth Mugo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. You can see my machine doesn't work, and I have reported quite a few times. I hope now it will. Mr. Speaker, let me also take this opportunity to condole the people of Solai Nakuru for this terrible tragedy, and also the very able Senator Susan Keaka. We commend you. You are truly a leader. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is horrifying to watch such a thing happen. We know, yes, tragedies can happen, but sometimes when they're aided by people, then those are not acts of God. And that's why we are asking that this Patel and anybody else who is related to this tragedy are arrested immediately and tried and justice made to them. And not the usual thing of the Kenya courts where we see people come, then they go free. We want to see real action. And we commend the PPO, because he also got there. But let it not be covered anymore, the way we are used to seeing a light is lit and then goes down and no action. We want to see action this time. We commend the government for saying every people will be compensated. We know there's no way you can compensate life, but we want to see those survivors compensated, and even those who have died, taking care of their children who have been left, especially children, and children who have no parents now, even their education, their care taken care by us. I thank you.
Thank you. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
First, Mr. Speaker, my condolences to the people of Solai and Nakuru for the grave tragedy that befell them. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge Senator Susan Kihika, please do not spare the perpetrators of this natural, it's not a natural, it's man-made disaster. There's no explanation why you have a dam on a hill, 200 million liters, 2 million liters, mud wall. Somebody must call to task, majority whip, say it as it is. You make enemies in government, but say somebody must take political responsibility. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, Senator Sakaja and I have sponsored the disaster management bill. It's coming for public hearing on Thursday. Senators, this is the way to deal with disaster. The fact alone that President Uhuru Kenyatta gave Red Cross money, 1 billion or thereabouts, is confirmation that the persons tasked with the duty of managing disasters in this country have failed. So we are vindicated. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I urge the senators to support. Let's get action, but somebody must take political responsibility for this action. It's not enough to say sorry. It's not enough to say that the dam was illegal. Warma is responsible, and Warma is solely responsible. Somebody must be fired. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Senator Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to join the rest of my colleagues on behalf of the people of Kericho to condole our neighbors, the good people of Nakuru, following this very unfortunate incident. Just 2 quick points, Mr. Speaker. One is to Senator Susan Kihika, Senator of Nakuru, that I want to urge you on as you pursue justice for the victims of this heinous act. I call it heinous because negligence has led to the many people losing property and, more importantly, lives. As we pursue their compensation, we know life is priceless and there's absolutely nothing that we can give. But at least for the remaining members of the family, let them be paid something quite decent enough that will ease off the pain. Mr. Patel is an entrepreneur who has enjoyed the fruits of Kenyans. We all enjoy his signature salt, the Ken salt, in our homes. Therefore, he's not poor. He's able to compensate these people properly. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the point that I also want to make is that it will be a lives will have been lost in vain if we do not come with far-reaching regulations on how we are going to manage all our dammed waters across the country, the many dams that are being built now and those that are already in existence. If the report that will come from the task force that has been formed to look into this event is not properly considered, I hope this will be done unlike in other incidences in the past. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Abshiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief and just keep to something wrong with this thing, and just keep to. This doesn't work. No, it does. Okay, and just keep to my condolences to the families of the Solai victims, and to congratulate Senator Kihika for her steadfast support of the victims, first and foremost, and for also ensuring that she speaks up for them with regards to the people that are culpable, as well as with regards to compensation that they need to be given. We stand with the families, we mourn with them, but more importantly, as this House, I'm very happy that each and every person has given their support and commitment to supporting the disaster management in this country. I would like to appeal to the sponsors of the disaster bill to make sure that we are strengthening our institutions as opposed to perhaps making another layer, as I said before. And congratulations on a timely bill that really will come at a time when we need to consolidate all the different fragmented disaster organizations and disaster parastatals and disaster systems that are in our country. And I hope that this bill will look at all these little bits and pieces, because what we've seen so far is that a lot of narrow organizations or institutions that tell you, mine is to just issue a permit. What happens after that is none of my business. And then another one comes and says, oh, well, I have no powers to execute or to prosecute. And the other one says, so we have all these different little institutions that really are causing a lot of chaos, but also just draining the exchequer and the taxpayers' money, and not really giving us what we need in terms of disaster management.
Senator Ongeri.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to join the Nakuru people on this rather sad episode of losing lives because of man-made disasters. 2 million cubic water is enough storm to clear even the mountain when it's coming from a given height. And I think the level of culpability is clear. The owner of the dam, the Wama who were involved in this matter, and also the national government in failure to be able to monitor and be able to supervise the building of dams. And I think it's time for this Senate to put a legislative mechanism in place to handle such disasters with great finesse. And I think if we do so, we would have succeeded in the effort of ensuring that every Kenyan goes to sleep not feeling threatened in one way or the other, either through a dream or any other imaginary level there will be a disaster occurring to him or her during their sleep. We need to give comfort to our Kenyans. Given that the level of disaster, this is a manageable situation. This is a man-made situation, can't be controlled. I thank you, Mr. Chairman. My condolences go to every family in that disaster. And Susan, Senator Susan, you've done a great job. Don't relent in your efforts to fight corruption, because corruption is going to fight back. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ongeri. Senator Malakai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the chance to condole the people of Solai, Nakuru, for this terrible disaster. I just want to repeat what my honorable members have already said, that we need to learn a lesson from this terrible disaster, that in future, something like this does not happen. It's just sad that we normally react to things when they happen, but don't take the measures to be sure that such a disaster does not occur. So, Honorable Kihika, I support your move, and I'd like you to insist that this Patel person be arrested because he's responsible for what has happened, and also give some kind of support to the families of the deceased, because maybe parents are gone and kids are left without any parents. So they need to be held responsible so that others that may be tempted to do things this careless may be careful in future. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Finally, Senator Pringay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want also to join my colleagues in sending my condolences to the lives lost and also the affected families in Nakuru County. Number two is also to congratulate or thank Senator for bringing up the issue. I want to assure her, coming from Nakuru, that I'll join hands with him in ensuring that justice has been brought and to the institutions and people who are responsible in the said accident that did happen in Nakuru. I thank you, Speaker.
Very well, that brings us to the end of that unfortunate statement, or a statement on an unfortunate event. Order, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., order. We have one more statement under 46(2)(a), and that is a statement from the Senator for Turkana County, Senator Malakai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 46(2)(b), I rise to seek a statement from the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation regarding Kainuk Nadapal Road, Lodwar Loktang Road, and Lodwar Lokriama Road in Turkana County. In the statement, the chairperson should explain why the Kainuk Nadapal Road, which is the main highway connecting Kenya and South Sudan, is dilapidated. Why the bridge at Kainuk, which was washed away by the rains, has not been permanently fixed. When will the road be repaired? Why the road from Lodwar to Loktang has not been tarmacked, despite government promises that it would be tarmacked? Why the Lodwar Lokriama Road construction has stagnated, and clarify whether or not
order, Senator. Order, Senator. Senator Malakai, you are not seeking for a statement. You are making a statement. And I made it very clear that you are making a statement under Standing Order 46(2)(a). You have continued to seek a statement under 46(2)(b). And I think we had a discussion on this matter. So you are out of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I go on to...
Thank you that you are out of order.
Well,
you should say you apologize to the House and proceed in the proper manner.
Okay, I apologize to the House, and this mistake was made by whoever was crafting this statement.
Order, Senator, it is your statement.
Okay. I start from the beginning. Pursuant to Standing Order 46 2A, I rise to seek a statement.
Order, Senator. Order, Senator. The clerk's table will be of help to you. Order, Senator. Order. Order. So you approach the clerk's table quietly. After that, you will resume your seat. And after that, also quietly. And after that, the speaker will give further directions at an appropriate point. That will not be quietly. Order, Senators, subject to further directions by the chair, we shall proceed with the order paper, because this House waits for no man or woman. For that reason, you will see from the order paper that we are supposed to go to order number 8, and that order, in exercise of the powers under Standing Order number 40, I direct that that order be stood down. Order number 8 is stood down. The same applies to order number 10. Is so ordered. Next order. What is it, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.?
Perhaps, Mr. Speaker, allow me to revisit your order with your permission and leave. On number 8, we had agreed that since the committee chaired by Senator Mahmood is issuing a report, that this matter awaits the report, so that the direction is clear that it has not been done away with completely. Thank you.
Is that further order?
No, I didn't say it's the order. I said it's a
order,
proposal.
Senator Junior. I said the order is stood down. Stood down is not. It's not deferred. It is not. It's just stood down.
Okay.
Meaning it can be reinstated at any point.
That you have clarified,
including
Mr. Speaker.
today.
You have clarified.
Order, Senator.
Thank you, Speaker.
Right. Next order. Okay, clerk. Next order. Proceed as appropriate.
Order number 9, the County Government's Amendment number 2 Bill, Senate Bill number 7 of 2017, second reading.
Order, clerk. You have to you need to read order number 8 so that we do what I've directed.
Order number 8, the County Wards Development Equalization Fund Bill, Senate Bills number 5 of 2018, second reading.
Them. The integration of environment policy in development projects, the promotion of trade as a tool for development, the drawing up of rural development programs and micro programs and projects tailored to the needs of specific communities. And this, I think, is very, very important because especially for us in Kenya, we are a rural-based economy. 80% of our population is rural-based, and therefore the projects and programs that are based and are specific for communities that target rural development programs are very, very important. And then the last, the promotion of regional, political, and commercial cooperation across the board become very, very critical and very, very important issues. Madam Speaker, I will not go through the report in detail because I think everything has been written out there. It takes a longer reading to really encompass and be able to take some of these points home. But I want to touch on some of the issues that are very, very key and that were touched by this report, and maybe as a way also for us to be able to take a, to borrow from the discussion. The one that strikes out most for me is the whole issue of climate change. And the realization that in many countries, and I think including Kenya, we have made efforts, but sometimes even what we are observing now as disasters are probably a result of climate change. It was shocking some time back when around Kiambu, I think near the slopes of Mount Kenya, and even another time in Nairobi, where we actually woke up to snow pebbles. And you know, the reality that one day we might be the ones experiencing the winter rather than the European community who are now experiencing. So climate change is very, very real. And for me, we might go into an overdrive for education, for other social infrastructure issues, but when we don't dwell on the issue of climate change, then we're going to get it wrong. And here it clearly states that climate change will lead to a rise in poverty and inequalities. And therefore, climate change and not addressing the problems of climate change might remove overnight all the efforts that have been done at addressing poverty, Madam Speaker. So looking at poverty, looking at inequalities, looking at the issues of food insecurity, health problems, surface water scarcity, coastal flooding, air pollution, and droughts inducing the displacement of people, I think is very, very real. And I think it's been happening in other parts of the country, but more and more we are beginning to see the ravages of climate change, and I think this becomes a very, very critical for us. See again, whereas the most serious of climate change are felt in developing countries, that is noted, particularly in the least developed countries, the people who are affected most by this, as this report clearly indicates, are the women, children, indigenous people, pastoralists, farmers, and fishermen. And I think this report at one point also very clearly states the importance of building the blue economy, ensuring that the blue economy can be well sustained so that at the end of the day, it can actually be able to play a bigger role in the income of a country. That has been ignored for some time, and that needs to be put into place. But I think this pinpointing for women, children, indigenous people, pastoralists, gives us a nexus of beginning to approach problems with them as a focus. And then, Madam Speaker, as I wrap up towards the end for what they were looking at in terms of the resolutions that were made, whereas every state has the primary responsibility to prevent and reduce disaster risk, including through international, regional, and sub-regional, transboundary, and bilateral cooperation. This is very, very encouraging. This is really about the reduction of disasters, and I think we've been looking at it from the point of Kenya at a national level, but this resolution is very, very important because it allows us to borrow even expertise, because we are moving and getting out and involving transboundary and bilateral cooperation in that particular aspect through international, regional initiatives, Madam Speaker. By next week, probably we'll be looking at the disaster management bill. Maybe these are the components to ensure that it has, that not only is it looking at it as a national level, but we're looking at it from a regional and national level, and looking at the partnerships that can come from the fore and how this can be put together to ensure that the whole issue is adequately addressed. Madam Speaker, again on the issue of food security and the issue of enabling to ensure that all countries can fully exploit their resources, this is very, very key. And one key finding from FAO, that 87% of the world's marine fish stocks are fully exploited, overexploited, or depleted. What does that mean for the fishermen communities? What does it mean for the safety and security and the possibility of exploiting the sea, which is already overexploited? And this is just only one aspect because of commercial farming in many areas. So I think, again, the need to balance so that we're looking at an ecosystem which, if it is overused, overexploited, we're moving into a problem, and that also sometimes is part of why we have the issue of climatic change, Madam Speaker. Because I think those issues which were discussed are really key, and they resonate. It's up to us to look at this report, to look at the specific details in this report, the issue of stressing the importance of investment, and also financing the blue economy projects I'd already mentioned, and that's the last one I want to talk about because that's very key. So, Madam Speaker, I think the work that was done through this particular assembly, I think is very helpful. I congratulate the team. I wish we can take some of these issues that they've brought on board and be able to implement them even as we shape our own policies in this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There seems to be no further interest on any comments. When I call upon the mover to reply.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. In replying, I want to thank the members who have spoken and to add to the functioning of our committees, that the committees are very vibrant and we sit in all of them. Although there is a rotational position that you must sit in one committee, we sit in all of them. And in this particular session, again, like the session of the 10th Parliament where I used to lead the delegation, we started when we were in a political situation that needed clarification. And Madam Speaker, remember when we were in Brussels, we discussed the situation in Kenya, and at that time, the High Court had just said we go for repeat elections, and everybody was going nervous for us, and we said, don't go nervous because we promised you in 2007 not to go nervous, and we came back. It was nice to report in Haiti that all was well. In Kenya, we had repeated elections and that we are good. So actually, we look forward to the next session when we can inform them that we even have gone beyond that. We have had handshakes and that all is well in this country. It's something that makes me feel proud to represent the country in these kind of delegations where when you are discussing the country situation, you can positively predict that Kenyans will turn around. And this fora give us those opportunities to sell the country and to make other states and especially the EU understand the workings of our nation. With those remarks, Madam Speaker, I really would like to commend the report again to the members for noting and for them to look at the details and see how to use them for opportunity. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well executed report. Now I want to put the question that this House notes the report of the 47th and 48th session of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Parliamentary Assembly and the intersession meeting and the 34th session of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly held on Brussels on the 9th and 12th October 2017 and Haiti on 13th to 20th December 2017 respectively, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 28th February 2018. As many as of the opinion say aye. Aye. And as many of the opinion say no, contrary opinion say no, nay. The ayes have it. Next order. Yeah, you can execute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to move the motion on the establishment of the Office of the Commission of Administrative Justice, otherwise known as the Ombudsman, at the county level. The Commission of Administrative Justice, as prescribed by Article 59(4) of the Constitution, and the Commission on Administrative Justice Act number 23 of 2011, is mandated to check maladministration on the part of public officers and to deal with
Honorable
instances.
Senator, may I bring to your attention the fact that you should read the whole. Just read the whole motion, please.
Okay.
I beg to move the motion.
Thank you for the advice, Madam Speaker. I rise to move the motion on the establishment of offices of the Commission on Administrative Justice at the county level. Whereas Article 59 of the Constitution establishes the Kenya National Human Rights and Equality Commission to, among other functions, investigate complaints of abuse of power, unfair treatment, manifest injustice or unlawful, oppressive, unfair or unresponsive official conduct. And whereas Parliament enacted the Commission on Administrative Justice Act number 23 of 2011 to restructure the Kenya National Human Rights and Equality Commission and to establish the Commission on Administrative Justice pursuant to Article 59(4) of the Constitution to provide for the membership, powers and functions of the Commission on Administrative Justice and for connected purposes, aware that the function of the Commission on Administrative Justice, among others, is to investigate any conduct in state affairs or any act or omission in public administration by any state organ, state or public officer in national and county governments that is alleged or suspected to be prejudicial or improper or is likely to result in any impropriety or prejudice, including investigating complaints of abuse of power, unfair treatment, manifest injustice or unlawful, oppressive, unfair or unresponsive official conduct within the public sector. Further aware that the Commission is expected to carry out this mandate in accordance with the values and principles set out in the Constitution and other laws of Kenya, cognizant that the right to access public service and fair administrative actions is critical to delivery of services to the people, both at the national and county levels of government and in other related public institutions, concerned that the Commission has its headquarters in Nairobi with satellite offices in the counties of Mombasa, Kisumu, Isiolo, and Uasin Gishu. Further concerned that the absence of the Commission offices in the rest of the counties has made it difficult for members of the public to report allegations of maladministration, delay, administrative injustice, discourtesy, incompetence, misbehavior, inefficiency, or ineptitude within the public service. Now, therefore, the Senate calls upon the Commission on Administrative Justice to urgently establish satellite offices in all other remaining counties to decentralize its services to facilitate members of the public to interact with the Commission and report allegations of maladministration in the public service with ease.
Now you can execute. Now you can make a statement.
Okay.
You can execute it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to move the motion on the establishment of the Office of the Ombudsman at the county level. The Commission is the protector of public interest and exists to be the citizen's watchman in the management of public affairs. The Act bestows upon the Commission powers to conduct investigations on its own initiative or on a complaint made by a member of the public. It can issue summons and require that statements be given under oath, adjudicate on these matters that relate to administrative justice, obtain relevant information from any person or government authorities, and to compel the production of such information. Madam Speaker, this motion seeks to address the need for devolution of the services of this commission to the counties, which is very paramount. Madam Speaker, the cost of travel to Nairobi for many aggrieved citizens to seek justice is prohibitive. At present, the Commission has 4 satellite offices in Mombasa, Kisumu, Isiolo, and Uasin Gishu counties. And while we laud this effort to decentralize services, further satellite offices need to be opened in the remaining 42 counties if we are to give counties valid jurisdiction in line with devolution. Claims should be addressed at the county level and its devolved units so as to eliminate red tape technicalities that prevent citizens from receiving services at the county level. Creating commission offices at the county level will compel institutions concerned to deliver services to the public in a timely manner and increase the accountability of public officials in the counties. Madam Speaker, in its present centralized status, the Office of the Commission deals with hundreds of issues of delay due to collection of information from distant counties and the slow follow-up on matters under investigation. This motion will therefore bring the much-needed urgent attention to the need to mitigate the issues of delays, incompetence, and transgression, and allow citizens to receive services and justice locally and in a timely manner. In this motion, I would like that the office of the Ombudsman at the county level be initially housed by governors. Also, that these commission officers at the county level should be offered resources, because currently they suffer budget constraints, and because they are centralized, it becomes difficult to ask for funding for them to decentralize these services. So they should be given more resources. And then we also expect that the structure of the implementation of this motion should be developed by the Commission of Administrative Justice at the national level. So as they make or put up these satellite commission offices at the county level, they should also outline for us the implementation structure of that decentralization, and also put timelines to that decentralization. Would also like the Commission of Administrative Justice to create a reporting mechanism as they draw up that structure, and offer linkages with other agencies for further action. For example, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, Kenya Human Rights Commission that initially held the act or the legislation where they were housed. We also need a review of the existing act to put the decentralization of the commission offices into law. We expect that through this motion, we'll amend the Commission of Administrative Justice Act, especially Article 55, that has a sunset clause to enable the continuation of the work of the Commission on Administrative Justice. Madam Speaker, it's important that we take these ombudsman offices to the county, because currently social media seems to be taking up the role of the Commission of Administrative Justice at the county level with no further action on whatever transgressions that people find out. His Excellency, the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, recently launched an initiative dubbed Huduma Mashinani. With Huduma Mashinani, we expect that there will also be some sort of accountability at the Mashinani level, and therefore, this motion of decentralizing the office of the Ombudsman is crucial at this point to achieve this initiative by the President. With those few words, Madam Speaker, I beg to move and request Senator Judith Pareno to second.
Senator Pareno? It was not.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I thank the mover of this motion for coming up with this very important motion on the on the evolution of the office of the Ombudsman. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion because 2 years ago, I was once really assisted by the office of the Ombudsman. As a lawyer, I would have quickly rushed to any court of law when I felt that I was unfairly treated by the administration. This was a case where I was unfairly treated by the Rural Electrification Authority that decided that they were going to be ordered as to who they should supply power to and who they should not supply to. And I looked at the options that I had. I had the option of going to court, and I had the option of going to the Ombudsman. And when I told my villagers, because this was about rural electrification, not only for me, but for an entire village that has now benefited to almost 40 homes after the Ombudsman assisted me. When I told the village that actually instead of us going to court, let us go to the office of the Ombudsman, they said, what is this Ombudsman about? Who is the Ombudsman? In fact, the name in itself is so heavy for our villagers that you need to demystify some of these services for people to feel these services right at the lowest level. So when I moved to the Ombudsman, I chose the Ombudsman because I knew that this is about unfair administration of justice. I knew, because being the legal mind, that I knew it would be faster for the Ombudsman to handle my situation than for me to go through the processes of a court procedure. Madam Speaker, I also looked at the cost. Here you are carrying the burden of a whole community. And you have to bear the cost of going to our courts of law, going to file your cases with the courts of law. So when I chose the Ombudsman, first of all, it was free. So that means you just easily access it. Secondly, when it comes to being free, you can access it, because the other ways I'm going to say it's not really accessible to the mwananchi. Secondly, it was not a long procedure. I just wrote a complaint on behalf of the community and said, I have been unfairly treated by this authority, and this is how they have treated me, and I want to be heard. So, Madam Speaker, to me, this is a good motion, because it will take the services right to mwananchi. If you devolve this service, then they'll be able to have it. Then they will even have awareness that there is something called Ombudsman. If you take it there, they will know it is there. If we go on keeping some of these services in Nairobi, I want to say that by the time I was making this complaint on behalf of the community, I had to travel all the way from down far from Sultan Hamud. The senator of Makueni knows where we come from, all the way to Westlands for me to access the office of the Ombudsman. So you can imagine my mother and our moms down there not even knowing how to come all the way to Nairobi. You tell them to come all the way to the office of the Ombudsman in Westlands, they will never access that service. So devolving it would mean that, one, they will know it is there. Two, it is so accessible, they can just walk there and file their complaint. Three, the filing is so easy and free. So this is why I'm supporting this office of the Ombudsman. Then the other thing, devolving of the office of the Ombudsman, the other thing is the issue of devolution in itself. If we are devolving every other service, this is one such service that should be devolved. Because you can imagine, we are talking devolution everywhere, in a lot of areas, in a lot of fields. And out of those fields, there are bound to arise a lot of disputes out of unfair treatment by authorities, by government. In fact, people will not believe when you tell them the Ombudsman actually is helping you to complain against government, you know? So it is a citizen against government. So it would be easier to devolve this, because a lot of services, as we go with this devolution that we all love and guard, and which we guard as a Senate, as we go along, these services that are devolved, a lot of issues will arise out of unfair administration of justice. So we expect that there will be more issues. So the more why we should devolve the office of the Ombudsman. So, Madam Speaker, when I visited the offices of the Ombudsman, first I noticed, because I actually appealed on behalf of the community, that please, for you to see what is happening on this project that I'm complaining about, because there was so much wasted, yet I'm being denied, but somebody else is even wasting what there is, can you come to the ground? They were unable to come. And from my own assessment, they didn't tell me. I could see the personnel was lean. You're just coming to one floor in some towers here on Westlands. They have lean personnel. They have lean, not very much resources to move around the country, so that then they are able to give the service. So devolution in itself will ensure that the little there is will be divided all along to the very the very few, or not so many, but few other offices that we are going to have for the Office of the Ombudsman. So this will ensure that they get a good budget. At the end of the day, this will ensure that to support those offices, they have the resources that go with it. This will ensure that they have the personnel that go with it. And the more the personnel, the more the resources, the more the service to the people. So, Madam Speaker, I really support this motion, and I'm happy that the mover has actually hinted, and it will come to be, that this will lead to a review of the main act of creating the Office of the Ombudsman. Because if you're going to ask for devolution, then most likely a review will serve the people better in terms of what we are talking about in this motion. Madam Speaker, I also want to say that at that time, they could not even hear witnesses. You know, you've complained, but there's no room for them to even hear or see what the people are saying on the ground, because they could not go to the ground. So we ended up relying on affidavits and submissions, which we were bringing and filing all the way from Kajiado, far Kajiado, all the way to Nairobi. This devolution or devolving of the office of the services of the Office of the Ombudsman will ensure that they now feel it. You know, once it is devolved, then they can see what the people are suffering from. They can hear from the people, and they don't have to rely on affidavits and submissions like they did in my case. I strongly support that we should devolve the offices of the Ombudsman, Madam Speaker. I support.
I now propose the question that, whereas Article 59 of the Constitution establishes the Kenya National Human Rights and Equality Commission to, among other functions, investigate complaints of abuse of power, unfair treatment, manifest injustice, or unlawful, oppressive, unfair, or unresponsive official conduct, and whereas Parliament enacted the Commission on Administration Justice Act number 23 of 2011 to restructure the Kenya National Human Rights and Equality Commission and to establish the Commission on Administrative Justice pursuant to Article 59(4) of the Constitution to provide for the membership, powers, and functions of the Commission on Administrative Justice and for connected purposes. Aware that the function of the Commission on Administrative Justice, among others, is to investigate any conduct in state affairs or any act or omission in public administration by any state organ, state or public officer in national and county governments that is alleged or suspected to be prejudicial or improper, or is likely to result in any impropriety or prejudice, including investigating complaints of abuse of power, unfair treatment, manifest injustice, or unlawful, oppressive, or unfair or unresponsive official conduct within the public sector. Further, aware that the Commission is expected to carry out its mandate in accordance with the value and principles set out in the Constitution and other laws of Kenya, cognizant that the right to access public service and fair administrative actions is critical to delivery of services to the people, both at the national and the county levels of government and in other related public institutions. Concern that the Commission has its headquarters in Nairobi, with satellite offices in the counties of Mombasa, Kisumu, Isiolo, and Uasin Gishu. Further concern that the absence of the Commission offices in the rest of the counties has made it difficult for members of the public to report allegations of maladministration, delay, administrative injustice, discourtesy, incompetence, misbehavior, inefficiency, or ineptitude within the public service. Now, therefore, the state calls upon the Commission of Administrative Justice to urgently establish satellite offices in all other remaining counties, to decentralize its services to facilitate members of the public to interact with the Commission and report allegations of maladministration in the public service with ease. I now put the question. Okay, now we want to call the senators who are lined up to make their contributions to this motion. And the first opportunity we want to give to Senator Kalonzo Mutula, Jr.
Madam Speaker, is Kilonzo.
Kilonzo Mutula, Jr., Senator for Makueni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I might be mistaken. Thank you. Yes. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion by Senator Petronila Locorio and say that this is one of those very timely issues that we have not tackled. But I must confess, Madam Speaker, that it's only that we don't follow up on the things that we do as a Senate. I had the privilege early in the last term to travel to the Republic of Germany to a state called Chemnitz. It's one of those states that were attacked in the World War, completely obliterated. And in our traveling, we managed to meet the Ombudsman in Chemnitz. Now, that is where public service is checked. This gentleman is like a judge. This gentleman is like a police officer. This gentleman is like a prison officer. This gentleman is feared and revered. Public officers shake in their boots at the thought that they can be reported to the Ombudsman. That's how powerful this office is. The ideals you see in the Constitution, including Article 232, which we rarely speak about, on principles of public service that are rarely enforced. We, the Committee of Legal Affairs in the last Senate, did a bill on principles of public values under Article 232. It is the only bill other than the Fair Administrative Act that was not amended by the National Assembly. It says you recognize public officers who do a good job. They are rarely recognized. You punish those who don't work or violate their offices. With the advent of devolution and the creation of governments, both national and county, even ward administrators have become people who are harassing Kenyans. Chiefs and sub-chiefs are taking people's wives. Chiefs and sub-chiefs are stealing public property by becoming administrators of an estate and dividing property amongst families. I have cases upon cases of this. Who is it that is supposed to check these people? It is the Ombudsman. To tell them, you have no mandate to determine an estate of a late person. You have no mandate to determine this is the wife and this is not the wife of the deceased. You have no mandate to call meetings at night. You have no mandate to determine marriage disputes or the disputes between husband and wife. And in some cases, I'm telling you, senators, one chief that I know has ended up marrying the person who came to them for a dispute. That's how serious this matter is. It is so serious that if there's one place where you want to have a check and balance, is having an ombudsman. We enacted the Fair Administrative Act under Article 47, which says you have the right to information, access to information, you request for it from government functionaries or state officers. If they refuse, they must give a reason and within a specific time. My fellow colleagues, when the government issued an order for birth certificates.
Sorry, Honorable Senator. Senator for Laikipia, what is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, I want to understand, because I'm a bit confused. How can a wife be stolen? I don't know.
I'll explain when I finish. You lost me. I lost what I was saying. You interrupted. I forgot. But I was explaining that under the Fair Administrative Act and the access to information, the Kenyan public is entitled to access to information on anything within the public view, any entity. So under the Fair Administrative Act, when you request for that information is supposed to be given to you. But who checks in the county that when you request for information from government functionaries, you get it? Nobody. I was surprised. And this is why I would support this with all my heart. When the government issued an order for children to be registered and have birth certificates, the chief, because there's a practice that our mothers do not acquire or for some reason don't get notification of birth. Or when they get children outside the system, means at home, they don't get the notification of birth. So when chiefs were requested to issue orders or letters, they had to pay for it. 500, 1,000, sub-chiefs. This is what is called impunity. Your ID, I've said in this Senate, your ID is given to you for free. Why do we charge mothers of this country for birth certificates? I'm still waiting for the logic. I have not heard the logic behind acquiring a birth certificate upon a charge, yet when you're 18, you're not charged for your ID. Who are you charging? Are you charging the children of this country for birth certificates? Who is supposed to complain? You're punishing the minor. And mother, not much, because this is a charge to the child. So the office of the Ombudsman is one of those methods we will ensure that we have some element of oversight. You know, we think as senators we can do oversight. But there's some little oversight that you will not be able to do. And I've spoken about a sub-county administration, a chief, a sub-chief who is licensing one bar and not the other one. I have a chief who is running a bar. Amongst four, they are competing. So, Senator Petronile Rokoro, if there was a time we should support something, is this one. The checking of public servants at all levels. But this should also be an opportunity for the public to report, like the chief who is on Twitter. You know the chief in Nakuru, who when something is stolen in Nakuru, he sends a Twitter. A child is lost, he sends a Twitter. I have a girl who was going to Chicago when they opened. She's now in Line Sabah with some gentleman. We can't find her. But if there was a chief like the one in Nakuru, maybe the chief would have reported through Twitter that there's a girl who didn't go to school in Chicago and she's with some old man in Line Sabah somewhere, or Silanga and Kibera. What are we saying? That the Ombudsman should not be an office for purposes of only reporting bad things. It should be for people who have done well. Because, and the ones who have worked in government, like Senator Kamaru will tell you, most of the people who receive promotions because either they speak the right dialect, mother tongue, or they have a relative, a godfather, but not because they work. So, so we should promote the idea of reporting for people who work well, so that for once, promotions are based on merit. That chief in Nakuru should not only get a promotion, but he should get a reward for doing a good job. And the other public officers, there's a public officer, a traffic policeman in Sultan. When there were floods in Sultan, he wore gumboots and stood in the middle of the water to show people, please don't come here, please don't come here. The IG issued a note says, you have done a good job. That's not the way to deal with public service. Under the principles of Article 232, we would say we have rewarded this person. When the president was rewarding some people recently, I can't remember, Gideriman and others, we asked, why was this gentleman given a recommendation by the president and not the people who work? Those are the things that we are talking about. But if we are going to promote a good public service, and we are talking about each person, from county, national, then this is something that we support. And we support by insisting that it must be funded. We keep saying that the Auditor General's office should be devolved to the 47 counties for purposes of audit. But we don't say, please make sure that the office of the Ombudsman is also devolved. I want to thank, although belatedly, the Ombudsman who left, Honorable Otiende Amol. This is a gentleman who showed how an office should operate. By the time he left office, he truly was an ombudsman. Nobody asked him about a procurement. Nobody asked him about a meeting which he attended, which he shouldn't have. So that in the principles of public service, as Senator Petronila has proposed, if you're going to have an ombudsman, one of the things that we should say, that we should put men and women of good moral character and integrity. Senator Zani and I were arguing this afternoon over lunch that, truly speaking, when we insist that we must put people in office by merit, it's absolute lip service. I know that we have done things that are wrong even in the Senate, but I want to say that if you want to have a true ombudsman, there must be a person who's prepared for a lifestyle audit, declare how many wives you have, declare how many cars you have, so that if you are going to check impunity and corruption, you must be truly like Caesar's wife, above reproach. Otherwise, this will be an avenue like what EACC have done in some cases when they use their powers and privileges to investigate corruption, to punish and use witch hunt for people who are otherwise not guilty of corruption. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support.
Senator Agnes Zani.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand to support right from the onset and wish to congratulate Senator Were. This is a very, very good motion. Senator Were, I think expeditiously you should very quickly get the right amendment to this, because I think as a motion, it's usually we bring a motion as a tester. And for sure, from what you've heard, this is one of the things, one of the services that really needs to be devolved to the counties. You know, when you go to Tsimba village, where I come from, and you say Ombudsman, Office of Ombudsman, they'll first of all ask you, what is Ombudsman? And what does Ombudsman do? And I'm sure this will happen in Turkana as well, and maybe deep in Kericho. And yet what this Ombudsman has to do comes to me, listening to Senator Kilonzo Jr. Making his contribution, comes to me very close almost to a village elder of high repute. And we know how now with societies having disintegrated, we're getting less and less of that. And with impunity almost becoming a culture in this country, with corruption becoming a culture, with people who are given appointments to offices who don't merit those offices becoming a culture, more and more, the people of Kenya are losing faith in the court systems, which are also very expensive and very, very complicated. And yet some of the issues that they need to be solved are issues that can be brought to a closure very, very easily. Madam Speaker, I was looking at the report of the Office of the Ombudsman for the previous year, the one that they hand over the annual reports. And they have detailed there the number of cases that they've dealt with, case to case, and I could see they've done a lot. I think on the onset, if I was to think of what happened with that office, probably there wasn't enough public clear and very public publicity. There wasn't a lot of publicity about that office. And I think this is just not the first time it has happened. I think even in the previous times in the office, they don't come out openly enough. I think they've been too courteous and too, doing their work. Sometimes you have to shout from the rooftops. You have to shout from the rooftops so that people know. And I'm sure Honorable Amolo did a very, very good job. But I think very few people know about this office. And this is why this has to be devolved to the counties, so that people know, so that we don't even congest our judiciary and our legal systems with the chicken cases. My chicken has been stolen, my wife has been stolen, somebody was asking how are they stolen, now the Ombudsman can come and explain to us that better. But there are so many cases, Madam Speaker. Recently, we are hearing cases of somebody has shot the other one, the family wife has shot the husband, the children, the other one has murdered. All these are family disputes. disputes to do with land, disputes to do with inequalities and wealth, because that's what everybody's struggling about. And yet the traditional system that dealt with that so diligently and so effectively is no longer there. That, in my mind, seemed to have been replaced by this ombudsman. So I think it's very, very important. The imagery that Senator Kilonzo has drawn to the sort of power that this ombudsman should be able to have and the sort of assertion he should be able to have, the sort of means the government has to support and push for such an ombudsman, for him to have the capacity, not only at a national level, but also at the county level. So even as we go into ombudsman, and I'm sure when you're amending that bill to ensure that we must get the right ombudsman within the counties. We must get people of merit. We must have people of, you know, whose behavior and reputation and character is not in dispute. Because if we don't do that, Madam Speaker and Senator Were, the problem is that we'll have again models of ombudsman placed, because this will look like a job creation. And you know, Madam Speaker, what job creation means in the Kenyan context. And I hear Senator Kilonzo Jr. saying yes. The right person in the right office for the ombudsman, for him or her, and I'm sure Senator Were, even as we talk about it and we should also make sure that no more than 2/3 gender rule is applied. Let us have women ombudsmen coming up and showing the leadership that women are so well known for, especially in sorting out disputes. So I support this. And in the light of having such widespread impunity now rather than tomorrow, this needs to come in the form of an amendment as a bill, and I'm sure we'll support it, and I don't think National Assembly will have a problem. It will be able to deepen our administrative justice reforms, and that is very, very critical. Quickly, why? Why do we need to devolve it? Just to bring the office closer to the people, even geographically, in terms of proximity, very, very key. To ensure that there's better coordination, monitoring, people are able to look at these cases, people are able to address them. There'll be better accessibility, and some sort of public notice and document has to go out to say that the services from the Office of the Ombudsman are free. Let it be known, so that we don't have people picking on this and coming to say, now we want to have a charge for the birth certificate, for the notification of birth, because Kenyans are Kenyans. I saw, Madam Speaker, on a light note the other day when we had floods, that there were people already standing at the door of the matatus, and you had to choose whether you want to walk through the water or you could be carried on the shoulder, and if you had the money, you give the money pap. So Kenyans are very, very innovative. Once there is a gap, and, you know, people, I think when people talk about unemployment and self-employment, I think in some of our minds, that is what we mean. When we now are able to apply our ingenuity, we then quickly then employ ourselves to do something. But that is exactly what discourages people. Madam Speaker, there are certain places in Kenya you go to where to find somebody even with a shilling or 10 shillings, they celebrate. Madam Speaker, very unfortunately, the other day I was somewhere, I will not mention where, and there were women who came and sold their produce to us, and I just decided, let me just give a token of, I think it was about 200 shillings. The lady jumped up, ran, she was going round and round. I was asking, why is she going round and round? Because of the excitement. Would that make you happy? When we are calling ourselves a middle-income economy, we should not have such sins. But this is the same person who is expected to pay 1,000, 2,000 to a chief who has to be paid that money for these services, Madam Speaker. Not only do we need these devolved units in the counties, but also a lot of education, a lot of public participation, a lot of sensitization, so that this particular person is facilitated to do their work. And that can only happen if we have an informed citizenry. The citizens have to be informed. Part of also the work of a very good ombudsman is to ensure that there's participatory decision-making, even within the context of the work that they do. And some of these arbitration processes can actually be done very, very quickly. Like it is happening now with FIDA, they have coming up with an arbitration and mediation, for example, for family issues. This is the sort of the way to go. I think it was in Nakuru, I saw a situation where when people are, when the people are in a matatu at the stage, that they're young girls going and welcoming them into the matatus and praying and letting them go. And ask myself, what is all this about? But I realized when people behave like this, it actually reduces the levels of pressure that exists within the society. And that's the sort of pressure there is with all the injustices that we have. And we need the ombudsman. I'm comparing the ombudsman to those young, well-dressed girls who pray and say, go well. Because sometimes that's all you need. You just need to hear a kind word and a laughter from somebody and an encouragement from somebody. And when this happens, we'll reduce a lot of tension. Last but not least, and very important, is improved services, improved service delivery, which is very, very key. If devolution is to work, we need improved service delivery, and especially on justice at any level. Let the Ombudsman office be created in county offices as early as tomorrow. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support.
Senator Sam Ongeri.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also rise to support this motion by Senator Petronila Were for having clearly drawn the inspiration from Article 10 on the national values and principles of governance, and also Article 47 on fair administrative just action, and Article 232, values and principles of public services. I think it's quite clear for every one of us today that what happens at the county level leaves a lot to be desired. And as already earlier on alluded to, the social media has taken over the driving seat of what is happening, and some of this information being peddled in the social media may be either true or false. And therefore, an individual is left totally in a state of flux because they do not know what is happening. And when we devolve these services, it's perfectly within the mandate of devolution. The spirit of devolution, according to Article 174 of our Constitution, the values and the objects of devolution, as captured in A to I think are quite clear to us. And this one service that must be clearly be devolved so that the services can reach the people. I'm also informed and I'm aware that the things that are going on at the county level are very repugnant. There is an entrenchment of ethnicity. There is an entrenchment of clanism. There is an entrenchment of malpractices which are not conducive to good governance in accordance with Chapter 10 of our Constitution. And therefore, we need to curb all these elements for us to be able to continue being able to access services that are necessary and important for our people. Traditionally, some of these elements of family issues that affect the family units were resolved amicably by elders of the society or the community where somebody emanated from. But unfortunately, with the onset of the new constitution, people have resorted to litigations, and litigation process is an expensive affair. It's very threatening, and sometimes people are unable to meet the expectations that are required in wanting to pursue a matter which is unfair to every one of them and to every society for that matter. And therefore, the office of the Ombudsman is an essential office in being as the checks and creating the checks and balances in order to be able to get a fair administrative justice so that people can move freely, can interrogate a program freely, can interrogate the services freely, can be able to ask for their rights without being offended. And I think there's a level of impunity which has developed within the civil servants and those who are the county levels, both the national and the county level, that they are looking after what they can garner for themselves rather than what they can be able to disperse to the populations that are within us or within that county level. And therefore, this office is not only critical, but it's a very essential office so that at least it can put checks some of these malpractices that are going on. It's very pathetic when you get information, for instance, that a hospital, a level 5 hospital, and we had it earlier on today, that instead of offering the level 5 facilities that are required for higher management of systems or cases that are referred from other levels, these patients are being tossed up and down, first and foremost, to buy for materials for themselves in that hospital, to buy for fluids, to buy for medicines, to buy for bandages, to buy for all manner of things. And yet it's supposed to be a high-class level 5 or level 6 hospital. And our people are going through miseries. And I think the office of the Ombudsman at the county level will have an easy access for people to be able to approach and be able to make their complaints known by just a simple quarrel, by a simple petition, by a simple letter of protestation.
Order. Honorable Senator. Senator Ongeri will be given 10 minutes to speak when debate resumes, and Senator Faki will be given priority when debate next time. Honorable Senators, it's now 6:30 p.m., time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Wednesday, 16th May 2018 at 2 p.m. At 2:30 p.m.